There we are finally. Okay, now you're live on YouTube as well.
Well, he was having trouble on his YouTube. That's why Chunky's over on us. His stream was giving him trouble.
So it may just be the internet in general being a wonky piece of shit today. That's always an answer. But that link he posted there.
I can't get it at the moment until I type it in.
Yeah. It's a deep dive into 40k Warhammer lore. So if he posts it again, like that would be dope of you.
Well, like I said, the other links I just plain typed in here.
But yeah, that one was a Warhammer 40k lore. So yeah, see, that would work too. That would be perfect. But yeah, you're resized properly and you're up and running on YouTube. Ignore stream vibes, they can beat a dick. They don't do anything but tell people to refrain from things anyways, so they don't have that much power here. Hell yeah, much appreciated, man. But yeah, now your shit's resized out for you. You're looking appropriately and shit. And your chat is back up in your side window, so you can click on that link and it will actually do what it's supposed to for you. But for sake of argument, just copy that. And when you want to move on to the next one, just like paste it up into this bar for you. So like that. Just
Paste it right in right now.
paste and go. Well, I suppose unless you really want to watch the last 5 minutes of this guy.
Right. As much as I love Fat Electrician, he's been wanting me to do this, and I've been wanting to do it. So
Yeah, Warhammer has.
while
some
I
good
have
shit.
him up there on me, while I have you up here to get it, I'm getting it.
I got you then. Yeah, no doubt. But now your shit's all properly resized and it won't slowly antagonize me being slightly out of frame.
Thank you much, Chunky. Now you know why I have very little I do. I have Wake and Bake. He is my lifeline to getting anything done. Okay, that's good to know. But yeah, now you know Wake and Bake is my lifeline. Without him, I can't do shit on my computer. I am an absolute idiot. I feel like a fool, but it's the freaking truth. Oh. So, we'll get it started, and yeah, I'll probably skip the ad.
First millennium exists the Empire of Man, a backwards carcass of an empire comprised of many devoted forces, gigantic robot knights, religious machine cultists, and incredibly heavily armored women, most likely with sweltering abs. And one must know,
Okay.
the age of knowledge and enlightenment has ended. The age of darkness has begun. Roughly 60 million years ago, there existed aliens. And these aliens lived short, painful lives. They belonged to radiation-stricken worlds and often died of various cancers before the age of 30. These aliens, the Necron tier, looked up to the stars and found extreme beings of real power. Beings with the ability to create life. The Old Ones of the galaxy. They asked these Old Ones for help. Please cure us of our ailments. To which the Old Ones said, piss off. So the Necron tier gathered together and did the sensible thing. They declared war upon these old beings and were promptly beaten into the dirt back to their short, painful lives. In the world of Warhammer, there is a hell. This hell is not like you and I know it. It's more of an afterlife, a place where dead souls end up. This place has many names: the Empyrean, the Sea of Souls, the Immaterium, and the Ether. But mostly, we just call it the Warp. While you and I know of hell as a place of horrors and punishment, the warp isn't really that. Not in the beginning. It's energy, but the kind of energy formed from thought and soul, psychic energy, where the dead souls of people end up in a place that is impossible to understand. No laws of reality exist. Like, time is merely a suggestion, and it is not something that can be braved easily. The warp would be like sailing the ocean in a pirate movie. To jump from your ship would be certain death. To stay in the sea for too long on your boat could drive a man mad. And there are many dangerous things lurking in those depths. Yet, the sea is not evil. It simply is.
Okay.
There are more malevolent beings in those waters, areas that you do not sail towards. This would be known as the realm of chaos. The realm of chaos exists in the warp as a special area led by
Okay, so if you want the analogy, that's their Bermuda Triangle.
three chaos gods. Horn, the god of combat, murder, and slaughter, with a pile of skulls taken in his name. Zinch, god of change, mystery, and deceit, a confusing paradox of lies, schemes, and sorceries. And Nurgle, god of rot, pestilence, and Genshin impact. All things rot in the end. And Grandfather Nurgle is waiting for you with open arms. These gods ruled their respective realm in the warp, sending their many followers against each other in the great game to be the most powerful of all the gods. So the warp exists. Hell is real, parallel to our galaxy, with the realm of chaos and its gods fighting for control. But there are also gods of real space, gods of the normal world too. They're called Catan, and they eat stars.
Do you think God stays in heaven because he too lives in fear of what he's created?
These star gods saw
Oh my god. That's the one thought I never thought of, but yeah, God don't come back because he created us and he went, oh my god, what did I do? How stupid could I have been?
the plight of our poor Necron-tier and how the old ones cast them aside and said, you know what? You guys want immortality? Oh, we will make it happen. We are the gods of the tangible, of real space. We can give you a cure. So then they ate all their souls.
I think so, yeah.
Turned them into robotic automaton, feasting on their souls and leaving a hollow shell of an intelligent.
I don't want to do that. I was gonna say, in this case, it reminds me of an iRobot type thing. You know, we create the robots and then go, fuck, we need to get rid of them. I'm waiting for God to finally say it's time to get rid of them. They are dangerous.
Left that is technically immortal. With the
I'm
power
guessing
of
once
an
we be able to
entire
get off the
species'
planet.
souls, they turned their new robotic slaves on the old ones and hunted them to extinction. The Necron-tier, now the soulless, undying Necrons, got their wish at the price of their souls. But we can count the number of kind gods on an amputated hand. With time, the selfish star gods turned on each other, fighting one another for more chances at glory and power. With this, the leader of the Necrons, Zarek, the Silent King, the man who doomed his species when he accepted this deal, waited, planned, bide his time until he seized the perfect moment and turned his legions of undead citizens against the star gods. Gods cannot be killed, but they can be broken. So Zarek broke the star gods into thousands of pieces and locked them away in vaults, taking their free will away as they did to them, and sealed them away as basically Pokemon to be used as weapons in the future.
Okay.
It's Pikachu!
It's the Void Dragon.
Zarek then
I know I should be ashamed of myself, but I was too old for Pokemon when it came out, and my kids were kind of into it, but just more of the cards and stuff. They were at that stage where there were more Pokemon card games. And they weren't totally into it. They'd get a few because their friends were, just to check it out, and that's all they did. They are mad because some of the Pokemon cards they had were thrown away, and those bitches are worth huge bucks now. But, kids do that shit, and moms throw away that shit, and nobody thinks about it. Gonna all of a sudden become an iconic freaking game and shit. And I never really watched Warhammer or got into Warhammer, but this is pretty interesting. Thank you, Chunky, for coming up with it.
Himself for his sins, flying out to the darkness between galaxies to atone for what he had done. This entire situation, the genocide of the Old Ones and the rebellion of Zarek, will go down in history as the War in Heaven. It is the most brutal war the galaxy has ever seen and ever will see. This was a conflict that took an entire galaxy-spanning species and pitted them against gods that ate stars. The Necrons, rather crippled from, the War in Heaven, decided to go to sleep in gigantic tomb worlds on various planets until the upstart species of the galaxy died out. And so turns out when you have a war that lasts tens, hundreds of thousands of years and involves the genociding of multiple species, the old ones of the galaxy, and the consumption of souls from an entire race, the warp gets a little wacky. If you had a kiddie pool and it was nice and calm, Korn is over there splashing about, so you don't really go in that direction. Nurgle has explosive diarrhea, so you don't really go in that direction either, but you can still kind of get in the pool. The pool's still fine. Turns out when you add a couple trillion souls to that kiddie pool, it'll make the waves a little more turbulent. And turns out a lot of them like to pick a side, Nurgle, Tzeentch, or Korn. So the once calmer warp, the once relaxing kiddie pool, has now been bloated. 1,000,000 years of war will certainly make Korn, god of murder and slaughter, more powerful. 1,000,000 years of war will probably make Tzeentch, god of deception and change, a little more powerful. And good God, 1,000,000 years of war will make Nurgle, god of decay, just the tiniest bit more powerful. Now, entering that kiddie pool is no longer fun, it's dangerous. The warp is now a problem. Hell is resembling hell a lot closer to what we imagined it originally. The Sea of Souls and the Realm of Chaos are now intertwined. So who else to brave the galaxy than a species that won't need to deal with that? The Eldar are space elves. They have a lot of the traits that you probably think of when you think of elves. Tall, slender, pointy ears, bit more androgynous looking, no matter what DeviantArt will tell you, and a bit stronger on the emotional side. The old ones, as I mentioned, could create life. And when they were getting, absolutely bodied by the Catan and the Necrons, they made some new races to try to help them. One of them was the Eldar. It didn't save them, but they're here now anyway. Oh, and also the Orcs, but they're busy right now. The Eldar are a particularly psychically powerful race. So they were really adept at being able to handle the new turbulent warp of chaos and good at killing Necrons, hence why they went to sleep. Being psychically gifted is basically like being a wizard, but you get your wizard powers from hell. This is called being a psyker. And basically, if you want to do cool wizard shit like lightning from your hands or reading someone's mind, you can do that, but you siphon the energy to do that from the warp. Luckily,
that would freak me awful.
Good at handling this without too many negative effects, because summoning power from the Sea of Souls with the new Chaos friends can be a bit of an issue. But Eldar are pretty good at it. And you see, what's really cool and also awful about Warhammer is that most developed species travel long, faster than light distances by going through that warp. They create a tear in reality to unreality and move through it. Faster than light travel? Cringe. We go through hell itself to deliver your packages. For those of you who play Minecraft, you know how the nether is like a pocket dimension? So moving 10 spaces in the nether is actually moving something like 1,000 in the real world. That's basically what warp travel is. Just much like in the nether, there are a lot of things that want to kill you. The Eldar found a way to do so in between realities. Not regular reality, not the warp, something else. A purgatory of sorts, a fabricated psychic realm that allowed them to travel without fearing the negative effects of the warp. The Eldar were the perfect fit for the new galaxy, and they took it with open arms and pointy ears. The empire of the Eldar spread everywhere, and it spread all the way until now, the 21st century. That's right, while you are watching NPC streams on TikTok, the space elves were ruling the galaxy, and they did so for quite a long period of time. The 21st century came and went. Humanity grew and grew, all under the nose of their elf overlords. At this time, humans advanced, your classic sci-fi style way. We began to expand, colonize our solar system, terraformed our planets, created new and more powerful machines and starships. The age of Terra, also known as Earth, but we call it Terra here, was here, and existed between the 21st century all the way until the 15th millennia. Not much is known about this time, not much needs to be known. Humanity grew up, sought the stars. It's classic. Then came the years between 15,000 and 25,000, the age of technology, or to some, the dark age of technology. This is when humanity reached a new apex of technological understanding. When you think of sci-fi, there's a lot of things you can think of. Star Trek, maybe Star Wars style. You can go cyberpunk dystopian.
They say we come to understand, but no, our humans have this habit of making something, using it, and then learning to understand how good or bad it is. We tend to do that a little backwards. That's what gets us in so much trouble all the time.
The age of technology was deep sci-fi, like a scientific prowess that fringed on magic. This is also when the first ever psychers began showing up in humanity. Individuals with the genetic mutation to be able to access the warp, and then because of that, travel through it. Humanity was no longer constricted to their early ways of travel. With warp travel, they could go anywhere in the galaxy. They equipped ships with gigantic AI machines, with everything you would ever need to know about mankind, and sent them out on colony ships to expand their influence across the galaxy. And this was truly the golden age of humanity. And with every golden age, there is a fall. While the new human upstarts of the galaxy were reaching new levels of technology and prowess, the Eldar were engaging in
Debauchery!
Debauchery! Debauchery! What happens when a species has everything? You can produce unlimited food out of nothing. Your need for farmers and workers, gone. You have dominated the stars and have created a fast travel system that doesn't rely on the dangers of the warp. You have nothing else to do. You have no struggles, no problems, and feel as if there is nowhere else to go. Well, you begin to experiment. The Eldar started harmless enough. You know, you take a serious interest in your species' culture, your arts, paintings, poems, plays. These are Eldar, elves, remember? Their emotions are heightened, more powerful than us humans. So your plays get louder. They start to push on the limits of your hearing ability. Your music becomes different, more deranged. It pushes the boundaries of what is art. The visual spectacle of art becomes more bizarre, more delusional, more eccentric. And let's not forget a very important sense. Touch. Pornography is one thing. Brothels is another. What if they all mixed? What if your brothels were part of your art and music? And what if those became more deranged? The boundaries of debauchery were not just met but shattered. Next thing you know, murder is commonplace and often mixed with the art, music, and sex. Pain is a common byproduct of entertainment. Whatever sensation you can have must be increased, must be enhanced, must be taken to the limits. The Eldar Empire slipped into a nightmarish realm of debauchery and excess, with the worst of it taking place in a city in the Webway, a black market for these kinds of heinous acts known as Kamara. Some Eldar saw the writing on the wall, saw what was happening to their species and how far they had slipped. So they boarded continent-sized starships called craft worlds and left their empire, seeking a more enlightened, calmer existence among their peers. Some, those in Kamara, pushed it to even greater heights, relishing the pain and torment they inflicted on those around them. All during this, the warp, the yin to the yang of the world, was fed by these emotions, by the psychic power of the Eldar, by the souls taken in these depraved acts on a galactic scale. And just like that, Eldar ended. Slaanesh, the fourth chaos god, was birthed into existence and consumed the souls of 90% of the Eldar population. Those that fled were spared the worst of it, and those in the Webway and Kamara were able to stave off the pull of Slaanesh so long as they continued to commit horrid acts of torture and violence. But for the majority of the Eldar, their empire died with Slaanesh's birth. The new fourth chaos god, she who thirsts, the god of unspeakable excess of pleasure, pain, hedonism, and perfection, had been born. With the fall of the Eldar Empire came the ruin of humanity. Slaanesh's birth sent storms in the warp across the galaxy, making travel between star systems impossible. Coupled with a huge classic AI rebellion, as a staple in these sci-fi settings, humanity began to suffer the age of strife. Now, planets that relied on intergalactic travel were completely cut off. Long-range messages normally sent through the warp were snuffed out. If you were a planet that was great at mining stuff but couldn't get food, well, you know that movie about the rugby players in the mountains? Oh, and because of these insane warp storms and fluctuations, psychers began to appear among the human population a bit more often. Now, this initially had them hunted down as witches, because that's pretty common in this setting, but some deemed it right to protect them. Unfortunately for those people, psychers, because they open a gateway to the warp, don't really know how to use their powers well, and they kinda attract demons, who then force their way through the psyker as a conduit of sorts and begin to slaughter the population of your planet. The age of strife was a catastrophic period of time for humanity and set back their progress tenfold over the not one, not two, but 5,000 year period. During this time, the age of humanity that we know began to form. Worlds equipped with large mechs for agriculture began to equip them with weapons to defend from alien and demonic invaders. Over 5,000 years, this became a custom and tradition, dubbing them as night worlds, a feudal society of honor-bound knights in gigantic robots that uphold the chivalric code to defend their worlds and honor. A group of individuals on Mars, after radioactively bombing their planet to become inhospitable to human life, ran their entire lives underground on the few life support systems keeping them alive. Those technicians who could work on the machines and keep them operational were revered, and over 5,000 years went from skilled members of society to full-blown priests. The cult Mechanicus, or tech priests of Mars, formed in the ashes of the Red Planet with a religious fervor and doctrine on the cult of the machine god. And on Earth, or Terra, techno-barbarian tribes waged war across the planet in a Mad Max style of blood and gore, until finally, a mysterious man who lived in the shadows of Terra for millennia finally revealed himself to the populace. His name was the Emperor. He deemed himself the Emperor of mankind. Where did he come from? I don't know. Why is he 10 feet tall and the most powerful psyker of all of mankind? I don't know. Why is he basically immortal? I don't know. Where'd Cotton Eye Joe go? Who knows? But he's here, and he isn't happy with all of you ripping up Terra. So he began the Unification Wars, where he and a very early version of the famous Space Marines, the Thunder Warriors, reunited Terra under a single banner: with blood. Then, after taking over Earth, he reunited the Thunder Warriors into the fucking dirt. This is where we get the Imperium of Man, also known as the Imperium. The new faction headed by the Emperor of Mankind, with a treaty signed with the Cult Mechanicus on Mars to spread out and reunite humanity after the catastrophic Age of Strife. But first, the Emperor is going to need some smaller versions of himself. 20 of them, 18 of them, I meant. Gene-crafted sons of the strongest human to ever live. All of them possess unparalleled strategic power, intelligence, formidable strength and size, a real powerful force to unite humanity and stop the chaos of the current galaxy. Speaking of chaos, you ever seen that image of that guy? It's like throwing the baby like a basketball. It's about what happened. The Chaos Gods intervened and grabbed the 18 Primarch gestation pods and yeeted them across the galaxy at a whim, everywhere they could possibly go. A galactic game of keep away. So the Emperor had to get them back. So begins the Great Crusade, a crusade across the stars to reunite not just humanity, but the Emperor with his fallen sons. The first to be found was Horus, one of the strongest and most noble sons. The Emperor carried with him a legion of newly crafted warriors with genetic material made from their Primarch father. These are the newly made Space Marines. For Horus, his were the Luna Wolves. And as the Emperor continued on his great crusade, he found more and more of his sons, reuniting them with their individual Space Marine legions. Leman Russ, the cunning hunter with the Space Wolves. Rogel Dorm, the Phalanx with the Imperial Fists. Angron, the Barbarian, the very angry with his World Eaters. Fulgrim, the Perfect with his Emperor's Children. And Jagatai Khan, the Swift, the Stoic, and his White Scars. Those were just some of the 18, and one by one his lost Primarch sons were returned to him, and their Space Marine legions returned to them. The Great Crusade saw humanity once again reconquer the stars, returning worlds of humanity back to the Imperium and killing any and all who stood against their noble crusade. But in the years of the 31st millennia, treachery would break this all apart.
Men, we don't know what we did.
Horus, the Emperor's most beloved and favored sons, named War Master for the Crusade, succumbed to the power of chaos and daddy issues, all because of that bastard Erebus. Yo, fuck Erebus. Slowly, Horus would become corrupted, turning the Emperor's sons against him. This begins the most pivotal moment in our story, and the one that has like 50 books written about it, the Horus Heresy. 9 of the 18 Primarchs turned against the Emperor, and the following years were a bloody battle for the throne of Terra. The Emperor originally was working on a special webway project, just like the Eldar, to make faster-than-light travel significantly easier and safer, really improve humanity to allow them to conquer the stars without the risk of the warp. Well, this big red idiot named Magnus kind of blew a hole into that, literally and figuratively. So Big E over there is stuck on a gigantic golden throne, holding back the oncoming rush of demons and powering the Astronomicon. Basically a big North Star for people who are sailing in the warp to help them navigate. The Horus Heresy saw many loyalist and traitor legions pitted against each other in a bloody war until it reached Terra itself. Horus, unable to break through the lines and with time running out, made a gambit and opened his ship up to be boarded. The Emperor took this challenge, quickly allowing someone else to take control of the throne as he teleported his way onto Horus's flagship, the Vengeful Spirit. The Emperor, unable to truly kill his most beloved son, changed his mind right quick when Horus strangled the life out of his other son, Sanguinius.
Oh no!
I'm sure you've seen this image at some point. The Emperor then said, "I'm not gonna sugarcoat it," and proceeded to psychically blast Horus into complete oblivion, killing not only his body, but also his soul. Horribly wounded from this duel, the Emperor is returned to the Golden Throne in order to keep the demons at bay and power the Astronomicon, because without it, humanity would be flying blind. There he sits, slowly dying from his wounds and the strain of powering the Golden Throne. The only thing keeping him alive is feeding upon the souls of 1,000 psychers every single day. This was 10,000 years ago. We are now in the 41st millennium, modern day. Warhammer 40,000. The Emperor remains on his throne. The Imperium is a rotting carcass of an empire, a fascist, xenophobic cult that worships the Emperor as a deity despite him never wanting to be seen as a god. Over the span of 1 million worlds, the ecclesiarchy, the church of the Emperor, is spread throughout. Inquisitors with unparalleled power root out any sign of heresy or lack of devotion to their god Emperor. The other half of the traitor legions move about as Chaos Space Marines, raiding and pillaging the Imperium, while the loyalist half does their best to keep the Empire alive. All throughout this, they must endure Orc invasions, Eldar trickery, the reawakening of the Necron race, and the Great Devourer, the newest tyrannid threat from the darkness between galaxies that has arrived to feast on their worlds. The theme of Warhammer 40,000 is regression and intolerance. Every major faction in Warhammer has had an empire that spanned the galaxy only to be crushed back to a hollow shell of what they once were due to their own failings. Culture, the arts, personal freedom, religious tolerance, the simple possibility that alien life might not want to kill us is considered heretical and is often met with a pistol to the head. There is no time for these things. All there is time for is worship of the God Emperor and a million wars to be fought. To be a human in the 41st millennia is 99% of the time to live a horrible existence. To be one of trillions of other humans across a million worlds throughout the galaxy. A galaxy where AI is outlawed, so humans are repurposed and lobotomized to become slaves. A place where lack of devotion is met with death. And if you even have devotion, there is a good chance the threats to the galaxy, chaos, and aliens will kill you anyway. Warhammer is a world where you revel in being bad. There are protagonists, there are antagonists, but every faction is some shade of evil. Because playing the bad guys is always more fun. And my friend, you have a selection. So pick up that las gun, soldier. You and the other 3 million men and women in this single deployment on this single world in this single battle will now show them the might of the God Emperor. That weapon in your hands has killed 99% of the alien populations in this galaxy. Unfortunately for you, soldier, you're fighting the final 1%. May the Emperor be with us. Glory to the first man to die, for in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war.
I have to admit, their graphics are incredible on all these. That is one thing I will give them. They did an awesome graphics here. Oh, cool.
Trouble. Regardless of
Now, I had to watch that while I could get it up when I had Wake in here to help me pull it up. And that was awesome. I'm going to write down the other ones so that he can do that one. I can do that one next week. The other side of it. And I'm going to apologize to Nick, the fat electrician, for stopping in the middle, but I do want him to remember that it was done only because I had my computer guy in here at that moment trying to fixing something else, and he went in there and did that. So I'd like to go back and finish this one. Especially since I was down to the last, like, 8 minutes of this Mush Morton dude, because, yeah, he seems pretty freaking cool. I know that every war has had men and women who have been what we would call heroes. Not all of them are recognized as such. And maybe I just don't know, they don't talk because a lot of it is still classified in many cases. Could be the reason I don't know about a lot of our newer war heroes. In fact, I'm guessing that's half the reason we don't know about a lot of our newer war heroes. Where, like I said, in World War I or World War II, they needed to sell war bonds, so they definitely were promoting the awareness of their top leaders and or soldiers.
The Wahoo gets restocked, refitted, and sent
Now
off
we
on
just
its
pay
next war patrol on
taxes, and
April
it's
25th,
just what you
1943.
do.
This time they're getting sent up to the Aleutian Islands because apparently there's a huge Japanese fleet up there, and they want the USS Wahoo to go distress the enemy.
I got you. It's better if nobody tricked. You don't know anything. What are you talking about? I'll take care of it.
So they make their way up there. They identify a Japanese airstrip. Dick O'Kane, going full gung-ho, says we should start shelling this thing with the deck guns. But Mush Morton declines the offer because they're there to sink enemy ships, not announce their presence by firing shells onto an airfield. So they forego that idea. Fast forward to May 4th, they finally come across an enemy ship, and it is an auxiliary seaplane tender with a plane on top of it. Perfectly valid target. So they sneak up on it. Mush Morton gives the order. Anytime Dick fires 3 torpedoes. One of them hits, the other 2 hit, but they're duds.
God damn it!
The ship's damaged, but not enough to sink it. They start firing rounds in every direction, throwing depth charges everywhere. They don't even know where the Wahoo is, and they start trying to make their getaway. At this point in time, it's broad daylight. If they want to be able to take this thing out, they're going to have to surface and engage it, and it's not worth the risk. This thing's going to be able to fight back too well, and they decide that they're just going to stay submerged and slip away and let this one go. And at this point, Mush Morton, Dick O'Kane, everybody involved is just absolutely furious with these dud torpedoes. So from here, they head south. The weather warms up a little bit, and suddenly there's enemy ships all over the place. From here, they pick 2 freighters that seemingly don't have any sizable escort. They sneak up on them. They realize that the smaller of the 2 freighters is armed, and it is the escort for the other freighter. Despite that, they decide they're going to attack anyways. They open up by firing 6 torpedoes, 3 at each ship. 1 torpedo out of the 6 ends up connecting and actually detonating like it's supposed to, breaks the back of the regular freighter. It starts sinking, and the small escort freighter starts charging the USS Wahoo. Mush orders the emergency dive. They dive down, and the small escort drives right over the top of them, starts dropping depth charges, but they're too deep to actually affect the submarine. They make it out okay. At this point, the crew's starting to get discouraged. Mush Morton's getting pissed. He's got a reputation to uphold. Every time he fires a torpedo, 75% of the time, it's a dud. So at this point, Mush Morton greenlights the idea. They're going to take apart the torpedoes. They're going to throw out the magnetic detonator, and they're just going to set these things to detonate on impact. From here, Mush Morton gives the crew a speech. I'm paraphrasing, but he essentially says, that's it. We're done sneaking around. We're going to get right up close to these guys and punch them in the goddamn teeth with these torpedoes set to impact. Now the crew's getting fired up. They think they fixed the torpedo issue. Captain's not giving up. They're not giving up either. Sure enough, the next morning they spot 2 ships, 1 big ass oil tanker and a freighter. They go to engage. They fire 6 torpedoes, 3 at each. The 3 fired at the tanker all detonate, blow this thing up, sink it in like under a minute. Out of the other 3, 1 hits, 1 detonates, but it snaps a spine, and that one sinks too. Both ships sink before the crew members can get out to take a picture. Bad news, they've got all kinds of shit popping up on the radar now. There's apparently a bunch of Japanese ships in the area, so they dive down as deep as they can to 300 feet and just try to wait it out. Now they know the Wahoo's in the area and they're willing to fight about it, so Morton has to change up his tactics, be a little bit more conservative. He's gonna stay submerged during the day. He's only gonna operate above the water line during the night. At this point, they're running out of torpedoes, but they're trying to make the best of it. Then about a week later, on May 12th, they come across 2 more Japanese ships. They go ahead, they line up their shot. Mush Morton gives the order. Anytime, Dick, they fire 4 torpedoes, 2 at each. First set of torpedoes both hit their target, but one of them's a dud. So that ship's injured. The second set fired at the other ship are both either misses or duds again. At this point, Mush Morton's pissed. He orders them to surface the ship. He's gonna drive this torpedo right down this ship's throat. They line up their next shot above the ground. This is gonna fix any depth issues, any targeting issues. They're gonna fire this torpedo, sink this ship, and end this war patrol the right way. They fire the torpedo, direct hit. It's a fucking dud. Mush Morton orders the gun crews to go up. They're gonna finish this ship off with the 4-inch guns and the 20 millimeters. As soon as they open the hatch, that other ship starts firing on the USS Wahoo, and Mush Morton makes the decision that that ship is not worth a single member of his crew. He orders them back in, and they dive down. At this point, all they can do is head back to port. That's exactly what they do. They sail into Pearl Harbor. They do not fly the broom this time. This was not a clean sweep. Mush Morton is absolutely pissed off with their performance, but Charles Lockwood, the commander, is actually pretty happy with it. By the metrics of all the
when I
other
remember, I
submarines
get
that
it
are
up
going
on
out
my
right now,
computer,
this is
but
still a
half
very
the time I
successful
look
war
at
patrol,
it
but
on my
Mush Morton's
phone.
Standards for him and his crew are just that much higher that he's not happy with it at all. Despite that, Mush Morton is issued another Navy Cross, and Dick O'Kane is given
I
another
think I
Silver
might be
Star.
able to
Dick
just
O'Kane is
click
also
on it
promoted,
and
he's
be
going
able to
go
pull
get a
up
submarine
that.
of his own, and he is going to be the commander of the new submarine, the USS Tang. So Mush Morton gets his new XO. August 1943, the Wahoo sails into the Japanese Sea. Mush Morton wants to implement a
That's
new
what I
tactic. He
thought,
wants to
and I'll
open
probably
by
do
firing
that
only
before
1
we're done
torpedo at a
tonight.
time, as opposed to the standard volley of preferably 3, but at a minimum 2. He thinks that this is going to help him conserve ammo and sink more ships per war patrol. And the plan almost immediately proves to be a tremendous failure, not because necessarily it's a bad idea, but because the torpedoes fucking suck. Every time he fires a torpedo, it's either a miss or a dud, and he only fired 1. After attempting to engage multiple ships and all the torpedoes being failures, he radios back to Pearl Harbor. Pearl Harbor tells him to come back. They end up offloading a bunch of the torpedoes for testing, and Charles Lockwood criticizes his technique, says you need to be firing at least 2, preferably 3 torpedoes, and then he loads the USS Wahoo with the new Mark 18 torpedo that's supposed to be more reliable. And with that, on September 9th, 1943, they take back off into the Sea of Japan, straight into the heart of enemy-held territory on an extremely dangerous mission. We don't know exactly what happened, but by October 5th, 1943, they would signal to Pearl that they had sank 3 ships in the La Perouse Strait. The La Perouse Strait at this time is an extremely dangerous area, heavily fortified by the Japanese, connecting the
Damn, that's the north side
and
of
unfortunately, that
Japan.
transmission on October 5th was the last transmission that the USS Wahoo ever sent. The
Oh,
USS
dear.
Wahoo was supposed to send another check-in transmission on October 26th, but it never came. With that, Charles Lockwood dispatched planes and ships to check return routes, hoping to find the USS Wahoo disabled but still floating. But they never did. On November 9th, Admiral Lockwood was forced to make the announcement that Wahoo was a month late to its report time and presumed to be lost at sea with all hands. The USS Wahoo remained lost at sea until its wreckage was discovered in 2006. After examining the wreckage and comparing it to Japanese reports from that point in the war, it was determined that the USS Wahoo had sustained some type of mechanical failure or damage before the battle had actually begun, and it was leaking oil, and a Japanese plane managed to spot the oil leak, leading it directly to the silhouette of the submarine under the water. It took 60 depth charges and 40 bombs to sink the USS Wahoo and send it on its eternal patrol. Vice Admiral Lockwood blamed himself. He later wrote that he didn't think the Japanese were smart enough to catch Mush Morton and the USS Wahoo. Both Lockwood and Dick O'Kane spent the rest of their careers advocating that Mush Morton should be posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor. Unfortunately, due to the partially successful propaganda painting him as a war criminal, as well as him pissing off a bunch of high-ranking officers over his dissatisfaction with the torpedoes, that would never come to fruition. Dick O'Kane would go on to become the most successful submarine commander in U.S. history and the only man to outperform Mush Morton in a single war patrol. And he credited much of that success to everything he had learned under the command of Mush Morton, the man and the crew that rewrote the book on submarine warfare. Thank you for watching. Best way to support the channel is go buy some merch over at thefatelectrician.com. Quack bang, out. It's okay, American submariners don't die, they just stay on patrol. I'm not crying. This office is infected with onion cutting ninjas.
Okay. That one was a bit heavy because usually his guys don't die until later in it, not during one of the missions, so that was kind of sad. But I will say it was pretty fucking incredible. But I do remember, like I said, there was a point where they lost a lot of guys and some really good ones. All because of those goddamn bad blades.
As someone who doesn't necessarily serve.
Okay. So I did go over to it. I was gonna wait, but I am gonna go over to it. I hit your link. I think I got the right one this time. Yeah. Smart ass, but yes. Yay, I figured it out. I love it. And yes, you can give me shit anytime you want about my computer ineptness and my fear of trying to mess with shit, because I have had so many problems. I do feel like an idiot often. And I own up to it totally because, hey, gotta have some sort of gimmick, and if mine can be that I'm just the dumbest computer person ever to do a Twitch stream, that's gotta be some sort of gimmick, right? Other than being an old lady watching weird stuff. Okay. So, I wait a minute. I should take a moment. I've been done 2 videos now. So I realized what I didn't do, because I said it was your video, Chunky, but it was your suggestion. So I need to give Bricky his due, which is the channel that these Warhammer videos came from, the one I did before and this one. So please, y'all, don't get mad at me that I did not give him his due the first time. I want you to definitely go over, hit a like, subscribe, and whatnot, because these are pretty in-depth and they're pretty damn cool. And I'm not a Warhammer person. I'm not a big gamer. But I'm actually totally getting into this. God dang you, Chunky, you're taking me off of my line, but this is actually kind of interesting. But we're going to go back to eerie, weird stuff after
Beyond
this.
Messiah, but someone who can appreciate them. You will not be getting my legs today, as I will be replacing them with various things depending on which faction we are currently talking about, to add a little bit more context
Okay.
and comedy to whatever the hell I am currently doing. So,
That ought to be
hello, everybody.
interesting.
My name is Bricky, and this is going to be a long video and a large project that has been going on for quite some time. This is
an hour long.
This is every single Warhammer 40K race in kind of a nutshell.
Not quite an hour, but close.
A little bit of explanation, a little bit of lore,
So, while he's still getting started on it, I'm going to go take care of business for a few seconds, because I'm guessing he may have a few seconds of
is a universe people hear plenty
intro.
of, but don't know a whole lot about. They see, oh, there's these dudes in big power armor with chainsaw swords, and they got these big old green orcs, and there's some bugs over there, and everyone calls these guys weebs, and then there's these spiky bitches over here, and I don't get it. I don't understand. Where do I start? Well, this video is particularly for you, or for those of you who have a little bit of knowledge, but you're kind of curious about each of the different races and factions in Warhammer. So overall, the Warhammer universe is vast when it comes to lore and background, and each different faction is so different with the things that they believe in, and some are human, some are transhuman, like where they all have all these crazy ass electronics on them. You've got aliens and you've got the chaos factions, and there's so much to entail that I decided to embark on this project to tell you what each and every single one of them is about, and what the Warhammer universe is about as well, to give at least a little bit of an intro to this extremely bloated but very, very enjoyable world that I and many others partake in. So I will be explaining every single faction in the Warhammer 40k universe, at least all the factions you can play as, and some smaller factions here and there. I will not be discussing absolutely everything in it because that is a little bit much, and I'm not going to go too mega deep into the lore. I'm going to give you a pretty solid overview of each of the different factions and have you learn a little bit about them, and we'll discuss a little bit of the tabletop as well in case you were curious about that. But for this episode entirely, we are discussing the Imperium of Man, because that takes up a fat chunk of Warhammer lore. Oh, boo-hoo! What is Warhammer 40,000? Well, the 40,000 starts off is the year 40,000, the 41st millennium. That's where it takes place, is in the year 40,000, 41,000 AD. You're already more knowledgeable. Let me read you a quote, first of many quotes in this video. It is the 41st millennium. For more than 100 years, the Emperor has sat immobile on the golden throne of Earth. He is the master of mankind by the will of the gods, and master of 1,000,000 worlds by the might of his inexhaustible armies. He is a rotting carcass, writhing invisibly with power from the dark age of
Nothing else that
technology.
looks like
He is the
Alice is
carrion
sitting
lord of
here
the
watching the
Imperium,
video.
whom 1,000 souls are sacrificed every day so that he may never truly die. To be a man in such times is to be amongst untold billions. It is to live in the cruelest and most bloody regime imaginable. It is the 41st. You're already more knowledgeable. Let me read you a quote, first of many quotes in this video. It is the 41st millennium. For more than 100 years, the Emperor has sat immobile on the golden throne of Earth. He is the master of mankind by the will of the gods. And
Now he
master
said
of
years and
1,000,000
it says
worlds by the
centuries.
might of his
That's a big
inexhaustible
difference.
armies. He is a rotting carcass, writhing invisibly with power from the dark age of technology. He is the carrion lord of the Imperium, for whom 1,000 souls are sacrificed every day so that he may never truly die. To be a man in such times is to be amongst untold billions. It is
Okay, now that's the one they were talking about, that Emperor dude, right? That needed all those souls to survive? That's the one they're talking about?
to live in the cruelest and most bloody regime imaginable. These are the tales of those times. Forget the power of technology and science, for so much has been forgotten, never to be relearned. Forget the promise of progress and understanding, for in the grim, dark future, there is only war. There is no peace amongst the stars, only an eternity of carnage and slaughter, and the laughter of thirsting gods. Everything blows, and it blows fucking hard. Warhammer is probably the most dark and depressing universes ever in fiction, or at least like top 3. Everything is so absurdly horrible, destructive, or overpowered that it all kind of ends up canceling itself out. It's like Dota. War rages across the galaxy. Interstellar travel is only possible due to sacrificing 1,000 souls a day to a rotting carcass of a man who you believe to be your god. Demonic gods and just demons tear open the fabric of reality on a whim. Other Xenos or even other humans end up killing each other in untold billions across the galaxy. It is a time of unending war, slaughter, and a bloodbath amongst everybody. Planets are deemed unrecoverable and are completely destroyed on a whim. Everything sucks, But that's like the charm of it. See, everything in Warhammer is evil, but being evil is kind of fun. Like, humanity in its own right is a xenophobic, prejudice, and religious zealot group that kill each other just as much as they kill all of their enemies.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta agree with that one totally. Not to be mean, but I would say if there are aliens, which I don't know, I haven't met one yet. If there are aliens out there running around the world or around the galaxies and they're checking in on us, I mean, I really do believe that they're making I would like to believe they're making sure we don't get off this damn planet so we can spread our chaos everywhere else, because that's the last thing we need to do. Yeah, so aliens, if they were smart, would just make sure we stay on our planet, because we'll extinguish ourselves eventually and we don't have to spread our fucking ridiculousness out to the rest of the world.
Enemies, and they're like mid to high tier evil on the evil scale of Warhammer. Nobody is good. No
And
matter
I know
who
this is
you
an
are,
imaginary
everyone
world,
is
but
some flavor, some color of evil.
anytime you put
Whoever
humanity in it, you got chaos and evil.
But that's the fun of it, because being the bad guy is badass. Villains are cool. They look cool. They got cool outfits. They got cool weapons. They got cool armies. Villains are cool, man. And when
Usually, yeah.
everyone is pretty cool. That's what makes this so charming, is that everyone can be the bad guy. So let's start off talking about the main bad guy, quote unquote, the Imperium of Man.
His hair, whack. His gear, whack.
The Imperium of Man is the main empire of the human race. All of humanity is under this one flag called the Imperium. And about 10,000 years ago, there was a man. He was the emperor of mankind, a 10-foot tall psychic demigod who led humanity across the stars to colonize tons and tons of worlds, create superhuman soldiers, and really bring humanity into a new age. This man, the Emperor of Mankind, was a psyker. And a psyker is like a magician of sorts. In the world of 40K, there is the warp, the immaterium, kind of like hell, but sort of like a purgatory dimension of hell. And a psyker is someone who can take that power and manifest it through their mind to use it to do stuff, like witchcraft stuff, magician stuff, spells, and lots of other things, but we don't want to get too into that. The Emperor, big boy psyker. Top tier, A+, maybe even S. Now, the Emperor created a bunch of sons. Yes, created a bunch of sons known as the Primarchs. He created 18 Primarchs to have them lead all of the different legions of humanity to the different stars and planets to help colonize and bring it out. These Primarchs are basically like little versions of the Emperor. Not all of them are psychers, but a lot of them are very, very powerful, and they lead his special Space Marine legions. Then this big clusterfuck happened called...
Okay, he keeps saying 20 and then going down to 18. Is there some sort of... Is he just screwed that up at one point and it just is part of his joke, or... Is there something that actually, like two subgroups or something that they just don't? Because, like I said, on both videos he says 20 and then does 18. Okay, that makes sense then.
Called the Horus Heresy, where the Emperor's favorite son, the Primarch, Horus, ended up joining Chaos and leading 9 of the 18, half of his Primarchs directly to Earth to fight down the Emperor himself. Now, if you want to know what Chaos is, remember what I mentioned earlier, the warp, that immaterial, place? In there relies the 4 Chaos gods. Imagine like Satan and 3 other Satans. The warp being kind of evil, those Chaos gods, that's the reason. And so those Chaos gods manipulated Horus, and then Horus helped manipulate all 8 other Primarchs to lead this giant coup directly on the Emperor on Earth. And they fucked up shit. After this huge civil war, Horus died, but not before brutally wounding the emperor. And right at the end of his life, they put the emperor on this large golden throne on Earth, in which he is now alive, just barely, but slowly rotting away, powering something called the Astronomicon, so long as he stays alive, and is fed 1,000 people a day. The Astronomicon is like the North Star. If you want to do interstellar travel in 40K, you need to pass through that demonic warp I mentioned earlier. But how do you know where you're going? Well, the Emperor is there putting a nice little navigator right there. He helps navigate you to know where you're going. If you want to go from Earth to some crazy solar system across the way, you need to go through that warp, and then you need to know where you're going, go through there, and pop your way out. It's like doing nether travel in Minecraft, so you can shorten the distance between going to areas. So long as the Emperor is alive and being fed 1,000 people a day to stay alive, you can do that. The moment he dies, interstellar travel's gone for all of humanity. You're so boned. Now, since the Horus Heresy 10,000 years ago, the Imperium has fallen from grace substantially. All technology has started to dwindle and die. There is now giant fundamental religious extremists that now believe the Emperor of Mankind was a deity, a true living god, which is probably the last thing the Emperor would have wanted to be remembered for. So now you have this thing called the Ecclesiarchy, which is this giant church entirely devoted to spreading the good word of the Emperor. He is now the holy
Okay,
God,
their
the
version
God
of
mankind, and all
the
of
Catholics,
Imperium has taken up worshiping him to the fullest extent and killing anything that isn't humanity in his name. The Imperium has this futuristic gothic tone to it and a hefty religious zealotry to them. If you think anything against the Emperor, that's heresy and you deserve to die. That is called being a heretic. Heretics die in 40K. There is no such thing as freedom of religion. There is no such thing as freedom of speech, so long as you are against the Emperor. There is no such thing as any kind of tolerance. Everyone is a religious zealot. Some more than others, but no matter what, you're preaching that good word. So right now, everyone in humanity is trying to expand their empire across the stars. If you are a heretic, someone who doesn't believe in the Emperor, you are deserving of death. If you believe in the Chaos Gods, you are also a heretic and you deserve death. If you are an alien race of any kind, you are a filthy Xenos and you deserve death as well. So long as the murder continues and humanity expands, the Imperium of Man is very, very happy. However, the largest fighting force of this Imperium is my personal favorite faction, and the first faction we will discuss, the Astra Militarum, or also known as the Imperial Guard.
Pretty shit now, man. You finished? That's it, man. Game over, man.
The Imperial Guard is the main fighting force of the Imperium, and in a world of horrifying creatures, galactic monstrosities, the literal demons themselves breaking through the fabric of time to kill you, the Imperial Guard are untold billions of regular men and women wearing modern day like flak armor with a laser rifle. This is the humble las gun, the main weapon of the Imperial Guard. It fires superheated plasma lasers at an extremely fast fire rate. It is reliable, never jams. It can blow off limbs, giant holes in concrete. It is overall an extremely devastating weapon in modern day. It is one of the weakest in the 40K universe. Yeah, a laser rifle that never jams, it could blow off limbs, one of the weakest weapons. That's the world we're in right now. But who cares? Because the Imperial Guard has, in each battle, 500,000 of these men and women, 30,000 large armored tanks, 10,000 artillery batteries. The Imperial Guard wins through sheer
so the
numbers
Imperial
and
Guard is the
firepower.
U.S.
They kind of
Army
have this World War I, World War
kind
II
of thing.
style aesthetic with legions of guardsmen as well as high company commanders and generals on the field along with
On a
them,
mass
and
scale.
multiple kinds of troops. A normal Imperial Guard battle starts off with artillery, long lines of artillery, cracking.
And
the
yes, I am
crust
just
of
trying
the
to
planet underneath the enemy's feet.
get it to
And as this barrage continues,
sink in
hundreds
of
of
what
thousands
these
of
are.
guardsmen sea of guardsmen surges forward, firing and charging at everything possible.
Right.
While the planet rumbles as tanks roll up behind them. Gunships block out the sun and tanks block out the dirt with the steps and hoofprints of millions of guardsmen. It is through numbers and sheer sundering firepower. They are the first and last line of defense for the Imperium and make up a huge bulk of the battles. The Imperial Guard is also made up of tons of different kinds of regiments. The Catachin Jungle Fighters live in a death world that's more hospitable than almost any firefight they'll ever get into. So they just have this steroid-looking, giant knife, Rambo Predator-looking sons of bitches, where nothing is anywhere near as scary as a simple knight on their home planet. You have the Valhallan Winter Soldiers who haven't felt their toes in 300 years, the Mordian Iron Guard who are more interested in making their shoes shine than actually fighting a battle, and then of course the big one, the Cadians from Cadia. The biggest export of guardsmen in the entirety of the Imperium. You will fire your first gun at 5. You will disassemble and reassemble it at 10. You will have pounding artillery drills day in and day out at 15. And you'll fight your first Swarm Lord at 16. And if you mention Cadia, you will burst into an unrelenting amount of tears and sadness like I do daily. To quote, I have at my command an entire battle group of the Imperial Guard, 50 regiments including specialized drop troops, stealthers, mechanized formations, armored companies, combat engineers, and mobile artillery. Over 500,000 fighting men and 30,000 tanks and artillery pieces are mine to command. Emperor, show mercy to the fool that stands against me, for I shall not. The Imperial Guard are my personal favorite faction in 40k. They're the army I collect the most, the ones I enjoy playing the most, and the one I enjoy in the lore sense a lot. There's something about just a regular man with a laser rifle being told to charge the horrors of this universe and willingly doing so for his god emperor. It's just poetic. They actually represent the main Imperial Guard tactics pretty well. Large amounts of artillery that doesn't require a line of sight, lots of tanks, tons of infantry, drop troops, and gunships. Overall, they're pretty similar to how they sound, though a little bit expensive to collect, unfortunately. And they don't hit a lot. They have a bit of a bad aim, but you don't really care because you're just drowning them in shots. However,
Right.
for more accurate fire and specialization, we can move on to talk about Space Marines. The Angels of Death are up next. Space Marines are genetically engineered super soldiers and superhumans. They're given extra organs, their skin tissue is toughened, their bones are stronger, they're taller than the average person. They're pretty massive people, and these are the specialized super soldiers that carry out a lot of the more specific tasks for the Imperium. And there's tons of legions of them. In fact, there's one per Primarch. Each Primarch, the Emperor's son, as I mentioned before, oversees their legion of Space Marines. The genetic upgrade they get is based on the genes of said Primarch. It's something called a gene seed. That's what brings them up to this like superhuman level. As stated, each Primarch has their own legion. Robot Girly Man has the Ultramarines, Jagatai Khan has the White Scars, Rogel Dorn has the Imperial Fists, Corvus Corax has the Raven Guard, and there's a whole bunch of other side sections that are also extremely interesting and have a little bit more of a twist on the average Space Marines, which we will discuss in a bit. Humorously enough, I don't have a whole lot to say about Space Marines. They're superhumanly fast. In fact, it's been said that nothing that large should move that quick. These men in power armor moving at blazing fast speeds, their reflexes are faster, their skin is tougher. They are overall just extremely powerful soldiers. In fact, where they differ comes down to which Space Marine Legion we're talking about. For instance, the Ultramarines done by Robot Gilliman, are the main blue boys, strong in almost every way, the jack of all trades kind of group that are a little bit too strong, and that's a lore problem, but the White Scars by Jagatai Khan are all about speed freaks, go fast. We're talking attack bikes, we're talking land speeders, you want to go in quick.
Okay, so that's our Air Force, their version of an Air Force, but on land.
Buzzsaws. With the speed of buzzsaws.
Because so far I've seen the Legion is the American Army.
Okay.
The next one was
Salamanders love fire. fire in the
Marines,
forest,
and
fire
then
in
there's
battle,
the
flamers,
basic.
melta-guns, multi-meltas. Just so long as something can be burning, that's big. And they're also actually some of the nicest of the Space Marines. A lot of Space Marines have this kind of like holier-than-thou thing because of their genetic strength. However, the Salamanders tend to put human lives above the lives of themselves, which is actually rather rare. They're also all black, but not like just regular black, like 2 a.m. line at a White Castle black. Like they have a charcoal, dark, ashy exterior and blazing red eyes. Apparently something about living on their home planet of Nocturne, which I don't know if that makes much sense, but who cares? This is like fantasy land anyway. Overall, Salamanders are actually one of my personal favorite legions because they're just really cool. They're fun to play as because of all their flamer weapons, and they have a nice, like, more heartwarming lore as opposed to being super evil like everyone else is. Oh my god, we're not even a quarter of the way through the Space Marine legions. Imperial Fists believe in the power of the siege and defensive positions. Raven Guards, master of stealth and sabotage while having bird helmets. Iron Hands, masters of machines and vehicles while being really goddamn good at being sold on eBay after one nerf. Space Wolves, Vikings and wolves and tons of wolves and axes, battle axes, fur everywhere. Space Wolves, so angry, big teeth, Blood Angels, the genetic defect to make them want to drink blood and go crazy, called the Red Thirst. They have Cupid wings and stuff, which is a little bit strange, and they are all super gay for Sanguinius. Dark Angels are old school knights and inner circle theme and...
Are you a heretic?
Me? No, never. Once in a blue moon, I know.
Death Watch, a fancy anti-Xenos group that nobody plays because Death Watch, and they look cool though, but no one plays them. I don't know about Death Watch. They're there though. Black Templars, for the people who, if you haven't prayed at least 3 times a day, you're gonna start praying out that airlock. And I'm sure there's some other chapters I may have missed as well, like Crimson Fists and stuff, but those are the main ones right here. Here, quote from the Emperor himself. They shall be my finest warriors, these men who give of themselves to me. Like clay I shall mold them, and in the furnace of war I shall forge them. They shall be of iron will and steely sinew. In great armor I shall clad them, and with the mightiest weapons shall they be armed. They will be untouched by plague or disease, no sickness shall blight them. They shall have such tactics, strategies, and machines that no foe will best them in battle. They are my bulwark against the terror. They are my defenders of humanity. They are my Space Marines, and they shall know no fear. And on the tabletop, they fuck.
Sounds like
they
a
fuck hard. As of making this video, Space Marines are laughably strong. That might change at some point, but overall, Space Marines just have it's like a Swiss Army knife, a tool for anything you need, except it's like a gold-plated Swiss Army knife. It is extremely strong. If you are actually getting into the tabletop of Warhammer, Space Marines are a great start. Also, whatever gameplay style you have, whether you want to be sit back with long range and heavy weaponry, go fast and run in, or even just full melee, all of these options are totally there for you. Space Marines are super badass, but unfortunately, it's time we start praying to our new god, the 2011 Honda Civic.
So is it any wonder people are afraid of technology?
Technology! The Adeptus Mechanicus. The Adeptus Mechanicus are a technophile cult on Mars. Now, these people are a little bit weird because they don't actually really believe in the Emperor of Mankind. And you might think, oh, whoa, Berkey, that sounds like some heresy. A little bit. They believe in the Emperor, they believe in his power, but they don't pray to him. They pray to something called the Omnissiah. And the Omnissiah is this kind of machine god that they believe permeates in all machines. And if you think, well, wait a minute, they believe in a different god as well? That sounds like super heresy. Well, yes-ish, but they also make all your guns, and they make all your tanks, and they make everything that you have, so you can't really tell them to fuck off? Because you're not gonna win nothing if you don't got stuff to shoot people with. See, their Omnissiah at least makes sense from their standpoint. They believe it to be a deity that permeates through all machines. Your Honda Civic, your standard bolt gun, your Dune Strider Walker, your giant mechs, your huge ships. The Omnissiah is present through all. And the only reason your stuff works is because the machine's spirit in it says it works. If you want your gun to work, your tank to run, you must pray to it. And I mean full stop. You need to start chanting in high Gothic. You need to burn incense. You need to sit on your knees and pray to that car. You need to rub oil on your robes, and you need to go ahomina, homina, 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 homina. Full stop. If you want your damn thing to work, if you want your gun to fire, you need to do that. They are very bizarre, and they actually have a bit of a point because it's obviously working. And if you look at them, I don't know how that works. So they obviously know something about what they're doing. The most notable member of the Adeptus Mechanicus is Archmagos, Magos, whatever, Belisarius Call. Look at this dude. Look at this dude. Yeah, this is the group we're talking about. These are these weirdos. Here, the Omnissiah Creed. The credo, Omnissiah. There is no truth in flesh, only betrayal. There is no strength in flesh, only weakness. There is no constancy in flesh, only decay. There is no certainty in flesh, but death. Flesh is
well,
weakness.
That is true.
Flesh is death. The Omnissiah
that's about as true as you can get.
And if you wish to be whole, if you wish to be holy, if you wish to give unto him, you must saw down your limbs and remove your organs and replace them with mechanical parts, because that is what he wants, and that is how you will become enlightened. Hard tech.
That's kind of freaky, I have to admit. Oh,
one guy,
shit.
And he
Okay.
died, and they're so scared they'll never work again that they keep them on and they never turn them off, and they run around in a circle the whole time until they need them, and then they corral it and they go into battle. Yep. The Adeptus Mechanicus. Now, if you want to talk about faith, though, let's talk about the Sisters of Battle.
A simp has fallen for an eagle in Lego City.
The Sisters of Battle of the Adeptus Sororitas, if that's how I pronounce it correctly, is an all-female group of battle sisters going through the ecclesiarchy section of the Imperium. The ecclesiarchy is, of course, the church. This is, imagine a private army of the church, which is scary, and it is. The sisters are an extremely zealotous force, and they take this to a full extreme. They believe in three main things: faith, martyrdom, and fire. Through the bolter, the flamer, and the melta, the Sisters of Battle are extremely potent at taking out chaos and heretics. Mainly heretics, because as they are a fighting section of the ecclesiarchy church, that's the big thing they want to kill. Any form of heretic will face the Emperor's justice through those three main weapons: the bolter, the flamer, and the melta, and they will do so with extreme prejudice.
Please forgive me.
Literally.
I swear I have a piece of cat hair that keeps floating right around my... I'm sure it's my hair floating around my face, but it's driving me nuts.
Fire on their backs. They have holy books and positive go through the warp. It's the immaterium, the place of all things. So if you are that mentally fortified, that mentally strong, you can stave off horrifying demons. And all these girls, not a crack in that mental armor. Now, as much as a meme as they are, and as much as their models look a lot like Ongo Gabloglian, yeah, which I can't unsee anymore.
That just...
For 5 millennia, so shall it be until the end of time. And speaking of burning demons,
I can see! I can fight!
The Grey Knights are the first army I actually collected back in 7th edition. The Grey Knights are a super secretive and much more old school look at power armored knights, except they are all psychers. All of them have that crazy space magic magician shit. For every 100,000 guardsmen, there's one Grey Knight. For every 10,000 Sisters of Battle, there's one Grey Knight. For every 1,000 Space Marines, there's one Grey Knight.
Okay, so these guys are just uber special in comparison to their other guys because they can move around. Which is pretty cool. I like that idea. But they, to me, they'd be your Air Force or something then, right? Like I said, I'm putting each of them in the category of what it seems to me they are like in modern.
I am the hammer. I am the mail about his fist. I am the spear in his hand. Though we are lost, I am the shield on his arm. I am the flight of his arrows. I am the hammer. I am the sword. I am the shield. I am a soldier at the battle at the end of time. Grey Knights are pretty hardcore. They are as holy as you can get for a Space Marine. If you like Space Marines and you want to, you know that they're holy enough, you want to be holier? Grey Knights. Now, if you want to be holier and big, let's talk Imperial Knights.
Oh, Lord, he coming!
Do you like gigantic walkers the size of homes or medium-sized buildings? Do you want to kill heretics, but you want to kill like 40 of them per turn? Do you want a gigantic old-school knight noble house style of walkers with giant chainsaw arms? Then you got Imperial Knights. Imperial Knights, it's not a whole lot to talk about them because they're just gigantic walkers, but they have this old school like house feel to them, like literally like they're houses. Each Imperial Knight comes from a house, and each of them act in their own special way. These behemoth of walkers also destroy almost everything in their path, killing full swaths of squads in a couple shots, stepping on legions of troops. Like, these things do not mess around, and they look so cool. Imperial Knights and Chaos Knights, actually, for that matter, don't have a whole lot to discuss. They're just super big, heavy walkers, and they look different depending on your house or chaos god you currently believe in. And overall, these things are just really cool if you want to murder everything in your path. They're the big, scary, big unit of Warhammer, and if you want to collect them, go to town. They make for a great painting project, too. Getting more back down to earth, let's talk something about a little bit different, a little more gold. If guardsmen are regular soldiers, Space Marines are super soldiers, Grey Knights are super soldiers, the Adeptus Custodes are super soldiers cubed. The Adeptus Custodes are the third major army I own. I know, 3 armies. I know, I got carried away, okay? But that's all. I only have 3, okay? They are our final brand of Space Marines, but these ones are super special. Okay, if a guardsman is 6 foot, a Space Marine is 7 feet, a custodian is 8 feet. These are the giant defenders of Holy Terra, which is also Earth. Earth is Terra, Terra.
Right.
Themselves. These are the people that literally guard the Emperor's throne room, hence custodies. These boys protect the Emperor's throne room at all times and are literally like handcrafted people. They're not humans brought up by a gene seer or something. These are all handcrafted super soldiers. I think from a tube. These behemoth of men are like 8 feet, 8.5 feet tall, and functionally immortal. They stand still, spear in hand, for hundreds of years without the need to sleep and barely even the need to eat, watching over the throne room and every other area of Holy Terra for their entire purpose in life. And oh my lord, are they terrifying. These custodians put Space Marines to shame. If you liked your super soldiers, these are your super mega soldiers. One of these men can take on probably 3 Space Marines and most likely win. There are many different groups of custodians as well, like the Solar Watch, or there's also one of my personal favorite, the Aquilon Shield. The Aquilon Shield go out to seemingly unimportant individuals and protect them because they believe that they are going to be doing something very important in their lives. For instance, let's say a regular guardsman gets the protection of this giant 8.5 foot tall golden god because that guardsman will end up becoming a general one day or something of that nature. The custodians work in mysterious ways and are almost always outnumbered but never outmatched. These people are pretty horrifying,
They're the Supermans.
both on the tabletop as well as in the lore. There are very few of them, however, and there's actually an extremely small amount of them. But that's kind of the point. There's only so many of these people that can have war gear this strong, weapons this powerful, and training this good. And the custodians have all three of it. For 100 years, I stood my watch amidst the somber shadows of the Sanctum Imperialis. I was still as a statue, but always ready, always attuned to dangers unseen. Days, months, years passed by in a frenzied blur beyond those walls, yet within, little moved and nothing changed. For 100 years, I did not but wait, yet had any threat appeared, I would have struck it down in a heartbeat. For 100 years, I stood my watch, and as it ends, I can tell you this: patience is a weapon. The custodians are the top dogs of the Imperium, and they hurt just that same way. Though I do want to discuss a little bit about the Sisters of Silence before we get out of here, because the Sisters of Silence I also have a few of, and they're really fun, but they don't get enough attention. These kind of bald plume ladies are a whole group of pariahs, or also known as blanks. We'll be referring to them as blanks from now on. So as every mind is somewhat connected to the warp, these blanks are a genetic mutation that has it suppressed heavily. Because of that mind suppression, normal people feel this weird, like, uncomfortable nature when around them. When a Sister of Silence walks past them, you feel ill. You feel just uncomfortable and strange. So most of them don't actually live past childhood, because once they are birthed, they're, well, you know, killed or something at a very young age, because they just emit a horrifying aura. These ladies, however, are guardians of the throne as well for more psychic threats. See, none of the custodians are psychers, so they have a difficult time dealing with major demons and other kinds of psychic phenomena. These sisters are extremely specialized in it, all of them taking a vow of silence as they don't speak, hence the term Sisters of Silence, but they communicate through hand gestures and things of that nature. But if there's a demon issue, if there's any kind of warp-based problem, the sisters are extremely adept at dealing with them, thanks to their blank gene. They normally work a lot of time with the custodians because they have to deal with both kinds of threats, but they're not represented that way on the tabletop. In fact, they only have like one real model for them, which is very unfortunate. I hope they'll get some like news soon, because I think they should really be working together as it is that way in the lore, but hopefully we'll get there soon. But if we're talking about blanks, let's talk assassins.
My precious power ring, gone forever.
It's been a long video. We're about to round it out. We got this and one more human thing, and then we're done. The assassins, though, the Officio Assassinorum, oh boy, these people are deadly. Yeah, they're called assassins. They should be, but oh man, these people will mess you up. So these are from the Officio Assassinorum, a very special organization, and they are handpicked by the Grand Master of the Officio Assassinorum from the what was it called? Schola Progenium. It's basically an orphan school. Your parents got murdered by demons or something, you get sent to this and you get trained to be whatever. Tempestus Drop Troop, an Inquisitor, maybe even. Maybe you get a blank gene and you get thrown into the Sisters of Silence, or sometimes you just disappear. When you are taken, however, you go to one of 4 temples, because the Assassinorum works in the temple style of things. These temples are the Vindicare, Caluxus, Calidus, and Eversor temples. Let's start with the Vindicare. I'm far away. I've been sitting here for 3 weeks. Poof! The Vindicare temple is the main sniper-based temple. Gigantic sniper rifles for all these assassins. Their whole point is to be able to be in a spot and sit there, eye and scope, for weeks, waiting for their perfect target, taking people out from literal miles away after extremely long time periods. The Vindicare Temple is about precise, perfect aim. There have been reports of Vindicares being able to single out particular body parts from over 2-3 miles away. Temples in the head, the jugular, for instance, and been sitting there after weeks. And when they're ready, take that shot, time is done, packs them up. The Calidus Temple, however, is a lot more about shape-shifting and deviant art. It's mostly a female-based one, or at least it seems to be, and this allows a lot of body augmentation for certain individuals to be able to kind of transmorph themselves and infiltrate areas that are problems. These assassins will end up taking missions that take them years, 2-3 years, to infiltrate a heretical group and slowly work their way up just to get enough time to put a bullet into the main target's head and then escape unharmed. Or become the main target and sabotage it from within. These are all completely about deception, mind tricks, polymorphing, and everything in between. And lots of drawings, lots of drawings. The Eversor Temple, just kind of disturbing one. The Eversor Temple is about when you don't want anything to come back alive, friend or foe. You want it all dead. An Eversor is psychogenically conditioned with just psychotherapy and psychological torture to only feel violence, hatred, and anger. It does the Clockwork Orange style of thing of just making you forced to watch never-ending pain and misery and psycho conditioning, I guess is the term. And then they pump you full of tons of psychedelic drugs and they cryo-freeze you. And then they drop you in an area where they just want to make sure everything is dead. And then you defrost, full of just all this insane, mind-boggling psychotherapy and psychedelic drugs, and you just go to town. Yeah, if you don't care if anyone comes back alive. You're like, all right, lost cause, send them in. Finally, there's the most bizarre temple, the Caluxus Temple. The Caluxus assassins are feared even among the other temples. So that blank gene, the people will go to the Caluxus Temple with this as well. And this is where they can harness that to be massively anti-psyker or even just anti-regular people. They're seen with extreme fear and distrust among many, many people. They're described by the Eldar by quote as being pure evil. Imagine that uncomfortable feeling from that blank gene I mentioned, and then imagine them being taught and given equipment to amplify it by 100. If normally regular people feel uncomfortable, now they are basically akin to being a siren wailing directly in your ear. And if you're a psyker, oh no. The sheer presence of a Caluxus assassin is enough for you to tear your skin off. You will rather gouge your eyes out and rip your nails off than even being near this person. The Caluxus assassin is when you want psychers to literally lose their minds, and they will go on their knees and ask you to gun them down because it is a suitable choice over being anywhere near you. The motto of that temple is, "That which is unknown and unseen commands the greatest fear." Now, for the tabletop, assassins aren't that special. You can call them in no matter what Imperium faction you are, and they do a lot of work for themselves, but at the same time, they're very specialized and require a lot of finesse. And they work the way you generally want them to, though. You want to cause some distortion and weird stuff, you take a Calidus. You want to just murder swaths of infantry and then blow up Eversor. You want to kill that one guy, Vindicare, and if you have a lot of psychers, Caluxus. It's a nice little, like, jack of all trades if you have a specific thing you want to kill. And you get to choose which is really fun. But now, let's talk about the last human faction. We can round this video out before we do part 2, the Inquisition. And we have a lot to talk about with them.
Well, on the subject of heresy!
Oh boy. Where do I even begin with the Inquisition? Take every secret police you can think of. The KGB, the Gestapo, the CIA, FBI, any of these kinds of people. And then mark it up by about 10 and give them the most power in the entire Imperium. No, you know what? How about this? This right here, it's not just a quote. This is the Imperial motto, the motto of the Inquisition. I apologize for my bad pronunciation. Innocentia nihil probat. Innocence proves nothing. The most powerful organization in the Imperium, the secret police, their #1 motto is innocence proves nothing. The Inquisition goes around like the secret police or like detectives to find issues in the Imperium. And they have different ordos depending on which one we're talking about. The Ordo Hereticus, the Ordo Xenos, the Ordo Malleus, for instance, and a whole bunch of other ones. Hereticus is obvious, they deal with heretics. Xenos tries to find alien threats, and Malleus is demons. They all have different specializations in what they're trying to go for as this Inquisitor. And that's what they're called, Inquisitors. Each of them, as an Inquisitor, has their own free reign to do as they wish. They may have a ship and a crew, and they go out to find problems and interrogate people a lot. They are above the law in every department over Space Marines. Now, the Space Marines might argue against them and stuff, and there might be a lot of blowback, but technically they are above them as Inquisitors. They are looking to investigate and figure out coups and cults and demonic incursions and possible Xenos issues like gene stealers or a new threat coming into an area. They're about learning that stuff and actually doing detective work. And memes aside, they're pretty good at it. The Inquisition having all of this power does make them a little bit power hungry and frantic sometimes. And yes, it is still a bad thing, but most of them are pretty good at their job. And they spend a lot of time being very diligent to make sure that all of these leads they follow are proper and correct. They're basically space detectives with just enormous power and sometimes a bit of a power complex. And we haven't even talked about Exterminatus yet. Exterminatus is deeming a planet unfit to be saved. I deem that this planet is demon infested, and taking it back will cost too many resources and is not worth it. I have now committed Exterminatus on this planet. I will now sign the death warrant of an entire Imperium planet, as it is unfit to take and better to be destroyed than allow the enemy to hold it. This can mean saturation bombardment. This can mean cracking the planet's core and breaking it apart. Doesn't matter. Render this planet inhospitable to all life. Yes, the innocence proves nothing people are the only people who can choose this planet must die in its entirety. Yeah, you're playing the villain.
I'm not really sure I like them guys.
Are very rare to do Exterminatus. Exterminatus is a very crazy thing. There's only so many worlds that you don't want to destroy all of them. Now, naturally, with the memes aside, there are some people who are a little bit rough on this one. But most Inquisitors generally don't like to do Exterminatus a ton, but it is an option they have, and it's a crazy option when you think about it. Secret Police Inquisition are unfortunately not represented on the tabletop very much. You generally kind of put one in your army if you feel like it. You have a couple special options there and some side content, but they're not really fleshed out very well, and personally they need a lot more stuff put in there, and they really need a lot more effort put into them, and they're not quite where I want them to be. Overall, the Inquisition makes for a lot of the best storytelling as well, because it's a little bit hard to talk about a big story of a whole bunch of Space Marines killing something, right? It's just a big battle story. It's not as interesting. Having that intrigue and that moral dilemma that an Inquisitor has makes for a lot better media. And honestly, the more people do it, I think it's better, because then it adds a little more humanity to the Warhammer horrible, horrible grimdarkness. And wow, we just finished the humans, all right? Come back for part 2 when we talk about Chaos and Xenos, because we got to talk about the 4 Chaos Gods and all the Chaos Marine Legions and the Tau and the Necron. Finish the humans, all right? Come back for part 2 when we talk about Chaos and Xenos.
All right.
We got to talk about the 4 Chaos Gods and all the Chaos Marine Legions and the Tau and the Necrons and the Orcs, and oh boy, we got a lot. I'll see you in part 2.
Now, I had some fun there. That was good. I have to admit that was interesting, and I am not a Warhammer person. But the fact that y'all went that insane to get that fleshed out so much is impressive. Now, BBC has CBBC. And I don't normally go over there, but they had a short, like 11-minute thing on Halloween about the top 5 stupid deaths. Horrible histories compilation. And I just thought that has got to be interesting. I'm not much into death, but horrible top 5 stupid deaths could be interesting.
Stupid deaths, they're funny 'cause they're true. Woo! Stupid deaths, hope next time it's not you. Next! So who might you be?
Draco, a Greek lawmaker and ruler of Athens.
Ooh, Greek lawmaker. Not the Draco, the one who made pretty much any criminal offense punishable by death, even stealing an apple.
The very same.
Oh, brilliant! Well, can I have an autograph, please?
Yes, of course.
Just here. Thank you. Ooh, any chance of a kissy? Ooh, 2 kisses. Lovely. Right. Now tell me about your stupid death. Come on.
Well, you see, I was a very cruel ruler, but also a popular one.
Cruel but popular. Me too.
So a special show was put on in the Athenian arena in my honor, and I stepped out to soak up the praise of the crowd. Anyway, the crowd, to show their adoration, began to shower me with their hats and cloaks.
Yes.
And then more hats and cloaks.
Good.
And then more cloaks. And more hats and more cloaks.
Yes.
And more hats and cloaks and more hats and cloaks until eventually I had so many hats and cloaks piled up on top of me, I suffocated.
That's hilarious! That's so funny. I'm gasping for air. Like you when...
Oh, because of the hats and cloaks thing, yes.
Oh, good news, Draco. You're through to the afterlife.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, dear. I love my job sometimes. I really do. Stupid deaths, they're funny 'cause they're true. Woo! Stupid deaths, hope next time it's not you. What? Oh, I don't get it. No, don't laugh at his jokes. You'll only encourage him. Next! And who might you be?
I'm a boxer, yeah?
Oh, no kidding.
From ancient Greece?
Oh, are you the famous Greek boxer Theagenes of Thassos?
Don't say that name!
All right, keep your beard on. I promise I won't say that name again. The name Theagenes.
Stop it!
Oh, sorry. Did I say Theagenes? I did say Theagenes. Sorry, it turns out I did say Theagenes.
Will you stop it, yeah?
Come on then, let's get on with your stupid death. Ooh, does it by any chance involve a certain you-know-who? And by that I mean Theagenes.
Yeah, it does. Right, I hated Theagenes of Thassos. I really hated him, yeah? Because he was like the champion boxer. I fought him loads of times, but he always beat me. And he was famous throughout Greece. But had anyone heard of me? No.
And you are?
Exactly my point, yeah? And guess what happens next, right? He dies before I can beat him. And then the people of Thassos build a huge statue of him.
Yes?
So every night, yeah, I creep down with a big stick and I would beat the statue of Theagenes of Thassos, yeah? Like, ha ha, I'm beating him, yeah? I'm beating Theagenes. It made me feel so much better.
Have you any idea where he's going with this? I'm absolutely clueless.
So anyway, one night, yeah, I crept down with my stick and I beat the statue of Theagenes of Thassos so hard that it fell down on top of me and it killed me.
Oh, God, I didn't see that coming. But then, neither did you. Oh, hey, was the boxer statue a heavyweight? Get it? A heavyweight boxer statue.
Yeah, I don't get it.
God, honestly, my humor is wasted on these idiots. All right, then, whatever your name is, off you go to the afterlife.
Nice one, yeah? I'll see you later.
Yeah. Knockout. Next. Stupid deaths, they're funny cause they're true. Woo! Stupid deaths. Hope next time it's not you. I'm thinking of getting my teeth done. Yeah. Oh, you have a spare set? Oh, you are a love. Let's talk later. Next! Oh, look, a boy band. And who might you be?
We are the Knights Templar.
Yes, I agree. It'll never work. You'll have to think of a new name. Baron Knight, perhaps?
No, we are Knights Templar. Knights from the Sacred Order of the Temple. One of the most skilled and feared Christian fighting units in the whole of the Crusades.
What, feared because of your dreadful smell? Ahoo-ah!
Yes, I think that might be me.
Yeah, that's him, all right.
All right, don't be like
Well,
that.
you stink.
Ooh, I sense a story here. Go on.
Yes, we were doing a nighttime raid on a Saracen camp. It was all going terribly well. We managed to sneak in unnoticed, and the element of surprise was very much on our side. But as we were making our way through the tents, I tripped over a tent pole.
Yes,
and fell headfirst into a hole.
Uh-huh.
Which, unfortunately, turned out to be their toilet.
Oh, hence the woo!
Yes, I got stuck and drowned in the,
You fell headfirst into a toilet, and then you drowned. It is priceless.
And that's not all.
Oh, goody, there's more.
He made such a noise, he woke all the Saracens in the camp, and they swiftly surrounded and killed the rest of us.
I have said sorry about that.
You nincompoop.
Poop being the operative word. All right. Well, guys, congratulations. You're through to the afterlife. The showers are on the left just as you go in.
After poo?
I love my job sometimes. No, you can't mentor them. You don't have the bands this year. Next! Stupid deaths, they're funny cause they're true. Woo! Stupid deaths, hope next time it's not you. 1, 2, 3, ha! Scissors beats paper, I win. 1, 2, 3, ha! Scissors beats paper, I win. Oh, I'm bored now. Will you just keep doing paper? That's not how you play it. Oh, grow up. Next! And you are?
Thomas Curtis of Suffolk.
And is your death by any chance arrow-related?
Yes, it is. I am a Tudor archer. How did you know that?
Just a lucky guess. Come on then, let's be hearing you.
Well, one fine summer's evening, I was out practicing my archery when I spotted a friend, the name of Richard Lybrance. Now, Richard is a fine archer, so I thought it would be quite funny to give him a bit of a challenge, right?
Yes?
So I yelled out to him, "Richard, I bet you can't hit my hat!" Turns out I was right.
Fortunately, he missed your brain.
Not sure I get that.
Proving my point. You're through to the afterlife. Oh, priceless. Next! Bo, hold the mustard. We got another contender. And you are?
Henry Pert of Nottinghamshire.
And is your death by any chance arrow-related?
Yes, it is. I'm a Tudor archer. How did you know?
Just a lucky guess. Again. Come on then, let's hear your story.
Well, I pulled my bow back to its full extent to loose an arrow straight into the air. Only I'd pulled it back so far the arrow got lodged in the bow. So I've leant over to have a look at what's going on there.
Yes?
Twang. Went in my head.
The most embarrassing Tudor Archery Death Award goes to Henry the Plonker. You're through to the afterlife.
Nice one, mate.
Oh, I tell you, this job just gets better and better.
I get it now, because I haven't got a brain.
Out! Well, there are some drawbacks. Stupid deaths, they're funny cause they're true. Woo! Stupid deaths, hope next time it's not you. And then they all died vomiting. Ooh, tough crowd. What are you two up to? Oh well, one for the gossip columns. Next! And you are?
Hannah Twin-Eye, Georgian barmaid.
Ooh, a barmaid, you say? Which pub did you work in?
The White Lion in Malmesbury in Wiltshire.
Oh, I don't know that one. My local's called the King's Head's been chopped off. Yeah. So what's your story?
Well, in the summer, a travelling circus arrived.
Whoa! Hold the ketchup! Did you say travelling circus?
Yeah.
Oh, I love it already. Do carry on.
The circus set up in the large rear yard of the White Lion.
Ooh, Did they have a white lion?
No, but they had all sorts of wild animals, though, including this huge tiger. Well, I ain't never seen one of them before.
Well, no, you don't get so many tigers in Malmesbury.
No, you don't.
Oh.
Do you know what I did? I prodded it with a sharp stick.
You do know that tigers are highly dangerous, don't you?
Yeah, well, the circus staff did warn me against upsetting the tiger, but it was such fun. I was poking it and prodding it. I threw things at it. I mocked it. I jabbed it.
And?
It got fed up and killed me.
There's a surprise. Oh, hey, that was a big catastrophe. Big catastrophe.
Yeah, but I was the
His
first
jokes
person
are
in Britain to
bad,
be killed by
but
a tiger, so...
How about this one? Stupid deaths are great. Like what the tiger says in the advert. What do you mean that joke's a bit dated? Look who's talking. I love your story. You're through to the afterlife.
Much obliged.
What is it with mummies, eh? No sense of humor. Stupid deaths, stupid deaths. Hope next time it's not you.
okay. Someone told me that was here and I had to check it out. It's actually kind of funny, but yet sad at the same time.
King William II.
Stop. But I have one I want to do
High
here.
Up in the misty hills of Appalachia.
I have heard of these before. I just don't know a lot about them. It's America's Lost Appalachian People. This is on Incredible Stories, but I know these people are legit. It's now I don't know if I'm gonna say it right. Melungian or Melungian. I am not sure. Tribe. And it's who they are and where did they come from. And I like I said, I know these are a legitimate group of people down in the Appalachians, but I just don't know that much about them, so I kind of wanted to check them out.
Appalachia, where the forests whisper secrets and the mountains guard their past. A mystery has lingered for centuries. Scattered across the rugged landscape, a forgotten people once lived, neither fully recognized nor entirely understood. They called themselves Melungeons, a name that echoed through history like a ghostly riddle. Were they the last remnants of an ancient civilization? The lost children of explorers? Who were the Melungeons, really? Where did they come from? And why did America try to forget them? The answers lie buried beneath layers of history, prejudice, and folklore, a puzzle waiting to be solved. Early mentions and historical records. The Melungeons did not appear suddenly, nor did they arrive in the Appalachian Hills in a single migration. Their presence was noted as early as the 18th century, but even then, they were already a people without a clear past. Who recorded their existence first, and why were they so difficult to classify? One of the earliest known references comes from the 1790s, when European settlers in what is now Hancock County, Tennessee, encountered a group of dark-skinned people who spoke English, yet bore features unlike those of the surrounding settlers. These mysterious individuals were labeled with various names. Some called them Portuguese, others Indians, and still others Moors. By the early 19th century, they had been firmly identified in census records as free people of color, a designation that would shape their fate for generations. Legal documents from North Carolina, Virginia, and Tennessee reveal how Melungeons lived in isolated enclaves, often intermarrying and forming tight-knit communities. Court records from the early 1800s show legal battles over land ownership and racial classification, with some Melungeon families fighting to be recognized as white, while others were classified as mulatto or even black, leading to restrictions on their rights. Perhaps one of the most striking early accounts came from Louis Shepard, a Tennessee judge, in 1889. In his writings, he described the Melungeons as a strange class of people living in the mountains, neither white nor black nor Indian. His
Maybe a
description
combination
hinted
of
at
all
what
three?
Historians would later confirm. The Melungeons defied the rigid racial categories of their time. But where had they come from? Had they always been in Appalachia, or were they the remnants of a forgotten migration? The answers would remain elusive, buried in oral traditions, folklore, and conflicting records. As speculation grew, so did the theories, some based on history, others on myth. And so began the search for the true origins of the Melungeon people. Theories on Melungeon origins. The origins of the Melungeon people remain one of America's most perplexing historical mysteries. Unlike the Native American tribes whose lineage is well documented, or the European settlers who arrived with written records, the Melungeons seem to materialize in the Appalachian Mountains without a clear origin. Who were they, and where did they come from? Over the centuries, multiple theories have emerged, some rooted in historical evidence, others in folklore and speculation. One of the most enduring theories suggests that the Melungeons were the descendants of Portuguese or Spanish explorers who arrived in the New World long before English settlers. This belief is supported by oral traditions within Melungeon families, who often claimed a connection to Black Dutch or Portuguese ancestry. Some historians speculate that these early Iberian travelers may have been part of explorer and conquistador Hernando de Soto's 1540 expedition through the southeastern United States. Others believe they could have been shipwrecked sailors from the 16th century, who intermarried with local Native American tribes. The presence of certain linguistic traces and physical features, such as olive skin, dark hair, and high cheekbones, lent credibility to this theory. Another theory proposes that the Melungeons descended from Ottoman Turks, Moors, or other Middle Eastern peoples. This idea was fueled by speculation that some early colonial settlements, such as Sir Francis Drake's 1586 rescue of Turkish and North African prisoners from the Caribbean, may have led to displaced individuals settling in the American South. The suggestion that the Melungeons carried North African or Middle Eastern blood was further reinforced by 20th century DNA studies, which found traces of Mediterranean and Middle Eastern genetic markers among some Melungeon descendants. These mystery genetics have added weight to theories about the Melungeons' origins, pointing to a complex mix of ancestral lines that is difficult to trace to a single source. Some researchers argue that the Melungeons were originally Native Americans, likely from the Cherokee or Powhatan tribes, who mixed with early European and African settlers. Many Melungeons were known to live near or among Native American communities, and their physical features often aligned with indigenous traits. During the forced removal of Native Americans in the 19th century, including the Trail of Tears, some mixed-race groups sought refuge in the Appalachian Mountains, hiding their heritage to avoid relocation. The Melungeons may have been among these groups, adopting different labels to evade persecution. One of the most controversial theories suggests that the Melungeons were of African and European descent, possibly the offspring of free black individuals and early European settlers. This theory is supported by historical records that frequently labeled Melungeons as mulatto, or free people of color. During the era of slavery, racial identity determined one's legal status, and many Melungeons may have attempted to obscure their African ancestry to avoid discrimination. Some researchers believe this is why they claimed Portuguese or Native American heritage, to escape the harsh realities of 19th century racial laws. A less common but still intriguing theory is that the Melungeons may have had Romani Gypsy ancestry. European Romani people were known to have been transported to the Americas as indentured servants, and some were classified as Black Dutch or Moorish in historical records. Could the Melungeons have been remnants of these wandering communities, blending into the Appalachian landscape? The blended truth? While each of these theories offers compelling clues, modern DNA testing and genealogical research suggest that the Melungeons were not from a single racial or ethnic background. Instead,
all of them.
they were likely a complex blend of European, African, and Native American ancestry, an isolated community that developed its own identity over time. Whatever their true origins, one thing is certain. The Melungeons were a people caught between worlds, never fully belonging to any single race or culture.
So are they
This
still in
ambiguity
life,
shaped their
or
struggles,
still around, or
their
are they
identity,
gone?
and their place in American history. But what did they look like? And what do modern scientific studies reveal about their genetic makeup? Questionable origins. The Melungeons were a people whose very existence challenged the rigid racial boundaries of early America. For centuries, their appearance baffled their neighbors, fueled speculation about their ancestry, and even became the basis for legal battles. Descriptions of the Melungeons varied widely depending on the observer. Some early accounts, particularly those from white settlers in the 18th and 19th centuries, describe them as having olive or copper-toned skin, straight black hair, and striking blue or hazel eyes. Others noted that some Melungeons had darker skin and features that appeared African or Native American in origin. The earliest written records from the Appalachian region classified them in vague racial terms, often calling them free people of color, mulatto, or even Indian. Their appearance was so unusual that many early settlers assumed they must have been a separate race entirely.
Honestly, a lot
Yet
of them
despite
look like
these
they're
descriptions,
inbred.
Melungeon families themselves rejected racial labels forced upon them. Many insisted they were of Portuguese, Spanish, or even Turkish descent, claiming their darker complexions were due to Mediterranean ancestry rather than African or Native American heritage. This claim, however, often conflicted with official census records that labeled them as non-white, a classification that had serious consequences for their rights and freedoms. By the late 19th century, as racial segregation laws intensified, being classified as non-white could mean losing land, voting rights, or access to education. Many Melungeons fought these classifications in court, attempting to prove they were white in order to avoid discrimination. Some were successful, while others found themselves pushed further into isolation. DNA tests. For decades, the true origins of the Melungeons remained a mystery. But in the late 20th and early 21st centuries, advances in DNA testing finally provided answers, some confirming old theories while others debunking myths. One of the most extensive genetic studies on the Melungeons was conducted in 2012 by the DNA Consultants Research Group, which analyzed the genetic makeup of known Melungeon descendants. The findings were groundbreaking. Rather than being purely of Portuguese or Native American descent, as some had claimed, the study revealed that Melungeons had a mixed heritage of European, African, and Native American ancestry. The results showed that the majority of Melungeon DNA was European, primarily from Britain, Portugal, and Spain. A significant portion was sub-Saharan African, contradicting the long-standing belief that Melungeons had no African ancestry. There was also a noticeable Native American component, particularly from southeastern tribes like the Cherokee. Additionally, some traces of Middle Eastern and Mediterranean DNA were found, possibly supporting the theory that they had distant Ottoman or Moorish ancestry. These findings confirmed what many had suspected. The Melungeons were not a single, isolated race, but rather a unique mixed-race population that had
Back
developed
when mixed races were popular.
They were the product of early European settlers, freed African Americans, and indigenous peoples who had blended together in the Appalachian Mountains, long before rigid racial classifications took hold. The DNA evidence supports a theory that Melungeons may have descended from early colonial-era interactions between different racial and ethnic groups. Some possibilities include Portuguese and Spanish explorers, whose Iberian heritage aligns with DNA findings.
Maybe that's where the Roanoke colonists ended up, huh?
As free African Americans intermarried with European indentured servants and Native Americans in Virginia and North Carolina before moving west into Appalachia. Additionally, some Melungeons may have descended from escaped slaves who took refuge among Native American tribes, while others could be linked to lost colonists and traders who integrated with indigenous groups or other marginalized populations. Despite their long history, the Melungeons as a distinct group largely disappeared by the 20th century. As racial laws hardened, many families chose to pass as white, abandoning their Melungeon identity in order to avoid discrimination. Some moved away from their Appalachian communities, integrating into mainstream American society under new identities. Others, however, continued to preserve their heritage in secret, passing down oral traditions and family stories about their unique ancestry. It wasn't until the late 20th century, when researchers began investigating their history, that interest in the Melungeons resurged. Today, many descendants are reclaiming their identity, eager to uncover the truth about their ancestors and challenge the historical erasure of their people. The Melungeons were once a mystery, a people without a history, lost in the margins of early America. But modern science has revealed what history tried to erase. They were a proud and diverse community, formed from the earliest racial and cultural mingling in the New World. Though once labeled as outsiders, their story is in many ways the story of America itself, a story of migration, survival, and the blending of cultures against the backdrop of a society that often resisted such diversity. Today, as more Melungeon descendants seek to reconnect with their roots, their legacy is finally being acknowledged, proving that even the most hidden histories will eventually come to light. The legacy of the Melungeons, rediscovering a lost identity. For centuries, the Melungeons lived on the margins of American history, their origins shrouded in mystery, and their existence often denied or dismissed. Yet, as modern science and historical research have shed light on their past, their descendants are reclaiming an identity that was once suppressed. The Melungeon story is not just one of genetic diversity, but also of resilience, survival, and adaptation in the face of social and racial prejudice. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, being labeled Melungeon was often a mark of shame. Many families, fearing discrimination, sought to hide their heritage, blending into white or Native American communities to escape racial segregation laws. The pressure to conform led to the erasure of Melungeon identity from official records, making it difficult for future generations to trace their ancestry. Schools and churches in Melungeon communities often refused to acknowledge their existence, and in some cases, the term Melungeon was used as an insult rather than a legitimate ethnic identity. By the mid-20th century, the Melungeons had largely disappeared as a distinct group, their history buried beneath generations of silence and secrecy. However, in recent decades, a growing number of Melungeon descendants have begun seeking out the truth about their ancestry. Genealogical research combined with DNA testing has provided many with concrete evidence of their diverse heritage. Melungeon reunions, such as those held in Tennessee and Virginia, have become popular gatherings where descendants can share family stories, historical research, and newfound connections. These events serve as a way to celebrate Melungeon identity rather than hide from it, marking a significant shift from the past. Organizations such as the Melungeon Heritage Association work to preserve and promote the history of the Melungeon people, ensuring their contributions to American history are not forgotten. The rediscovery of Melungeon identity has also sparked discussions about race and ethnicity in America. The Melungeon experience highlights how rigid racial classifications have historically failed to capture the true complexity of human ancestry. In a time when DNA tests have shown that many Americans have mixed race backgrounds, the Melungeons serve as a powerful reminder that racial categories are often social constructs rather than scientific realities. Their history challenges the notion of pure racial lines and instead presents a story of cultural blending that dates back to the earliest days of European colonization. Beyond academia and genealogy, the Melungeons have also left a lasting cultural impact. Some historians believe that Melungeon traditions, including certain Appalachian dialects, music, and folklore, reflect their diverse heritage. Elements of Portuguese, African, and Native American influence can be found in Melungeon communities' old songs, storytelling traditions, and even culinary practices. While many of these traditions have faded over time, some still persist in the Appalachian region, offering subtle traces of a once hidden people. Today, the Melungeon legacy is no longer one of secrecy and shame, but of pride and recognition. As more people uncover their Melungeon roots, the narrative is shifting from mystery to celebration. The journey to rediscover their past has allowed descendants to reclaim an identity that was nearly erased. Through research, storytelling, and community building, the Melungeons are no longer America's lost Appalachian people. They are an enduring part of the nation's rich and complex history, the struggle for recognition. Despite the progress made in rediscovering and celebrating Melungeon heritage, the struggle for official recognition remains a complex and ongoing challenge. Unlike federally recognized Native American tribes, the Melungeons do not have legal status as a distinct ethnic group. This lack of recognition has led to difficulties in preserving their history, securing funding for cultural initiatives, and gaining broader acknowledgement in historical narratives. One of the main obstacles to official recognition is the lack of clear documentation. Because many Melungeons were forced to hide their identity or were misclassified in census records, tracing their ancestry with certainty can be difficult. Many historical documents labeled Melungeons as free people of color, mulatto, or Indian, without acknowledging their unique background. The absence of consistent records has made it challenging for scholars to establish a unified narrative about their origins, leaving room for speculation and conflicting theories. Another challenge is the deeply ingrained racial divisions of American history.
Especially in the South.
Past, racial identity was strictly categorized, with little room for mixed-race communities to exist outside the boundaries of white, black, or Native American classifications. The Melungeons defied these categories, existing in a gray area that made them a target of suspicion and discrimination.
By every
Even
one
today,
of the groups,
some
probably
people dismiss
eventually.
the Melungeon identity as a myth or exaggeration, despite mounting historical and genetic evidence proving their existence. Nevertheless, many Melungeon descendants continue to push for recognition, both within academic circles and in their local communities. Scholars, genealogists, and historians are working to piece together a more comprehensive history of the Melungeons, drawing from oral histories, historical records, and modern genetic research. Books, documentaries, and online forums have played a significant role in educating the public about Melungeon heritage, helping to ensure that their story is not forgotten. Some descendants have also sought to have the Melungeons recognized as a distinct ethnic group, similar to other mixed-race communities like the Creoles of Louisiana or the Métis of Canada. While no official designation has been granted, the increasing awareness of Melungeon heritage has led to a broader discussion about the complexity of American racial history. Schools in Appalachian regions have begun incorporating Melungeon history into their curriculums, and museums and historical societies have started dedicating exhibitions to their unique legacy. Ultimately, the fight for recognition is not just about official status, it is about reclaiming a history that was nearly erased. The Melungeon story is a testament to the resilience of marginalized communities and the power of identity. As more people continue to embrace their Melungeon roots, the hope remains that their history will one day receive the full recognition it deserves. Notable Melungeon descendants. While the history of the Melungeons remained hidden for generations, modern research has revealed that several prominent figures in American history and culture may have had Melungeon ancestry. These individuals, often unaware of their heritage due to historical erasure and social stigma, have left a lasting impact on politics, entertainment, and literature. One of the most frequently cited figures with potential Melungeon roots is Abraham Lincoln. Some historians and genealogists have suggested that Lincoln's ancestry includes Melungeon lineage through his mother, Nancy Hanks. While there is no definitive proof, the speculation stems from oral histories and genetic traits observed in Lincoln's family. His lean features, high cheekbones, and darker complexion have led some researchers to believe he may have inherited mixed-race ancestry, including possible Portuguese or Mediterranean influences, commonly associated with the Melungeons. Another historical figure linked to the Melungeons is Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll. Genealogists have traced Presley's maternal line back to the Cherokee and Melungeon people of Tennessee. His great-great-grandmother, Mourning Dove White, is believed to have had Melungeon heritage, which may explain some of his distinct physical features. The Melungeon's influence on Presley's lineage connects him to the rich cultural tapestry of the Appalachian South, a region that played a vital role in shaping his music. In literature, the renowned author Mark Twain, actually named Samuel Clemens, is sometimes speculated to have had Melungeon ancestry. Twain's family came from Tennessee, one of the central regions where Melungeons lived. While there is no confirmed Melungeon connection, his deep understanding of racial complexities and themes of identity in works such as The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn may reflect a subconscious awareness of the region's diverse heritage. Similarly, Johnny Cash, the legendary country musician, has been linked to Melungeon ancestry. Cash's deep, resonant voice and Appalachian roots are well known, and genealogists have suggested that his family may have had Melungeon ties, particularly through his mother's side. Cash often embraced his mixed heritage, identifying with Native American culture, which further aligns with the Melungeon tradition of blending different ancestries. Another significant figure often mentioned in discussions of Melungeon heritage is J.D. Vance, vice president and author of Hillbilly Elegy. While Vance does not explicitly claim Melungeon descent, his exploration of Appalachian identity and history in his book aligns with the struggles faced by the Melungeon people. His work has brought national attention to the complexities of Appalachian heritage, which includes groups like the Melungeons who have long been marginalized. The rediscovery of Melungeon ancestry among these and other notable figures underscores the broader story of racial and ethnic blending in America. It challenges the traditional narratives of American history, proving that identity is far more intricate than previously thought. While some Melungeon connections remain speculative due to the lack of documentation, the growing interest in genetic research and genealogy continues to uncover surprising links between well-known figures and this once-forgotten people. The enduring legacy of the Melungeons. The Melungeons' story is one of mystery, resilience, and rediscovery. For centuries, they were pushed to the fringes of society, forced to conceal their identity in order to survive. Yet, despite the erasure of their history and the challenges of racial classification, their legacy has endured. Thanks to the efforts of historians, genealogists, and their descendants, the Melungeons are no longer an obscure footnote in American history, but a vital part of the nation's rich and diverse cultural tapestry. Their struggle for recognition raises important questions about identity, race, and belonging. How many other groups throughout history have been lost or overlooked due to rigid social classifications? As modern science continues to reveal the complexities of human ancestry, the story of the Melungeons challenges us to rethink what it truly means to belong to a people, a culture, or a nation. In the end, their legacy is not just about where they came from. It is about the enduring power of heritage and the unbreakable spirit of those who refuse to be forgotten. How many other hidden or forgotten communities might still be waiting to have their stories uncovered? And what does this reveal about the complexity of human identity? Share your answers in the comments below. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.
Now, I can say on that one that, without being mean, some of those pictures that they went through, the people in them looked like there had been some inbreeding, as well as the strange mixes of 3 different peoples, 3 or more. So I guess it was like, I would believe it was a little both, that there was the odd mixtures and then there was some inbreeding. And then of course there's the usual birth defects and stuff, and some children may have survived and some didn't, and those genetic traits continued on. Not being mean, just that's how genetics work. Usually the bad traits die out, but not every one of them. Okay, we're heading over to This Is
The
Monster.
Cooperative Republic of Guyana is a small country.
Yeah, I'll probably do that one next. If it's not if it's not more than a half hour. But I did want to do this one because even though I learned about it a long time ago because it happened in our lifetime, I really don't, I mean, I understand the don't drink the Kool-Aid concept. Perfect, I'll do that one after this one then. But I really want to learn about Jim Jones and the Jonestown Massacre. I know it sounds sick, but I mean, like I said, it's a bit of history that happened in my lifetime. And like I said, right now, most kids, when you say they drank the Kool-Aid, don't even understand that that came from this particular incident. And, you know, like I said, younger people I don't even think a big majority of them understand what the don't drink the Kool-Aid means or and stuff like that. So I really kind of want to do this Jonestown Massacre one, and then after that, I'll do one
On
from
the northeast coast of South America.
that was
Once known as British
recommended
Guyana,
over
because
here
those
by
people owned
Chunky.
almost everything at one point. They became independent in 1966 and became a republic in 1970. The world's largest single-drop waterfall by water volume is in Guyana with a flow rate of 663
That is
cubic
cool
meters per
and
second.
beautiful and weird all at
Jim
once.
Jones wanted to help people. He used religion as a way to bring people in and turn them to a life of activism. But soon, the power corrupted him, and when presented with the thought of his followers leaving him, he decided they'd be better off dead. This is Monsters.
And yes, This is Monsters is the channel we're on right now. Go give them a like and subscribe if you need to.
Some leading scientists say we have to have euthanasia. Oh no. Oh no. Who's going to decide who and when a person's going to die? We must never allow that, because this is the kind of thing that ushers in the terror of a Hitler's Germany. We must not allow these kind of things to enter our consciousness.
In the early 70s, a charismatic preacher took the stage in front of his congregation and told them that everybody was going to get a cup filled with fruit-flavored punch. He told everyone to drink it, and they did. They followed every command given to them by the preacher. They were loyal to a T. When everyone was finished, he told them that the liquid was poison and they were all going to die together as one. Some of the churchgoers screamed and cried, and others were silent. Then the preacher revealed that they hadn't drunk poison and he was only testing their loyalty. He wanted to see just how committed to the cause they were. He wanted to know just how compliant they would be. James Jones was born on May 13, 1931 in Crete, Indiana. His mother, Lynetta, didn't want children but likely used it as a method of winning over her disapproving in-laws. She would later tell people that she fell ill and had a fever vision that she was approaching the Egyptian River of Death. As she was about to cross, which would have killed her since it's the River of Death, the spirit of her mother appeared and told her that she couldn't die because she was meant to give birth to a child who would become a great man. Either her mother was way off, or more than likely, Lynette was full of shit. Jim's father, Jim Sr., was a World War I vet who worked on road crews but eventually got too sick to work. He suffered issues with his lungs due to gas attacks during the war. They relied on the generosity of his family and relocated to a small house in Lynn. Once Jim Jr. began school, Lynetta started working at a glass factory and Jim Sr. spent his days at home or down at the pool hall. While Jim was roaming the streets at 6 years old, waiting for his mother to get home from work, neighbors would take him in and feed him. One of them was Myrtle Kennedy, who would feed him pie and proselytize about her Nazarene religion. Jim Sr. and Lynetta were the only family in town that didn't attend church every Sunday, and Myrtle couldn't stand seeing a little boy grow up godless. She began reading the Bible to Jim and eventually started taking him to church on Sundays. Jim loved church and was soon quoting lengthy Bible passages. Kids that knew Jim said he became obsessed with religion and death. He would conduct funerals for dead animals in the area. One of the kids from the area said that he killed a cat with a knife and then had a funeral for it. One time, Jim led some neighbor kids into a building where a casket maker stored his caskets. Jim said he wanted to lie in one of the caskets and see what it was like to be dead. To Myrtle's dismay, Jim's fascination with religion wasn't limited to Nazarene. He began attending other churches in the area to see what they were like. He also started attending revivals where he listened to the preachers and learned the fine art of evangelical preaching. He realized that it would be the perfect opportunity to build his own following. Jim started practicing in the woods. He would stand on a tree stump and preach to an invisible crowd. He began telling the other kids that he had special powers from the Almighty and tried to prove it by jumping off the roof of a garage, intending to fly. He fell to the ground and broke his arm, but that didn't break his resolve. He continued claiming that he had special powers. When World War II began, the kids in town all began playing war, obviously as American soldiers who were defeating the Axis powers. Jim, on the other hand, seemed to focus his admiration on Adolf Hitler. Not his ideology, but the way he spoke to a crowd and the control he had over them. The way he could go on for hours captivating a crowd of adoring fans. Jim wanted this. He wanted to pull himself out of the poverty he lived in and become a beloved leader of millions. When Adolf Hitler committed suicide in 1945 as a means of evading capture, Jim took note. By the time Jim was in high school, all he talked about was religion and sex. Most of the kids, despite thinking he was odd, found his conversations interesting. He had a habit of arguing with teachers about details in their lessons. Though he never played sports himself, he did organize a baseball league and set up games with teams in other towns. It's said that he collected money from local businesses and set up a schedule all by himself. He acted as the coach of the baseball team in Lynn. The summer before Jim went into his senior year of high school, his mother left his father and they moved to Richmond, about 16 miles or 25 kilometers south of Lynn. Due to the separation and eventual divorce, the Jones family stopped helping support Lynetta financially. In order to help out, during his senior year, Jim took on a job as an orderly at a local hospital. It was at that job that he met a young woman named Marceline Baldwin. Marceline was a few years older than Jim and was in her final year of nursing school when she met him. He made sure to run into Marceline anytime she was on break, so he had a chance to talk to her. Despite the 3.5-year age difference, the couple began dating and would get married at a double wedding on June 12, 1949. Marceline's sister also got married at the ceremony. Their dad knows about efficiency. The time working at the hospital made Jim change his mind about becoming a preacher. He thought that becoming a doctor would afford him more opportunities to help people, so after he graduated from high school, he enrolled in Indiana State University in Bloomington. While at university, Jim was introduced to the ideas of socialism and communism. He had spent his whole life a vocal opponent of racism and saw communism as a way to make everyone equal. He started attending communist meetings in Indianapolis and brought Marceline with him. See, Jim's obsession was not about believing in God, but about amassing followers. He actually disliked most religions because they didn't follow the Bible that specifically said to feed the hungry and house the homeless. It said to sell your possessions and make men equal, but they didn't do that. Jim wanted to promote communism, but he needed someone to promote it too, so he used evangelical preaching as a way to gain followers. After a few years at college, Jim realized that his future was not in medicine. In 1952, he was hired as a student pastor for a small Methodist church. Through the early 50s, Jim began preaching at revivals and selling himself as a healer. He would walk around in the crowd ahead of time and eavesdrop on people's conversations. He had a remarkable memory and could call out people's names from the stage and announce their ailment. He would first just sell himself as something of a mind reader and tell people that they would get better, but soon he was claiming to actually heal people. He would even command people in wheelchairs to walk a few steps and they would. People with headaches and coughs would claim that their symptoms went away, which is likely due to the placebo effect. It wasn't until later that he would use a plant to make people believe that a woman was able to get up out of her wheelchair and dance around. Jim was ordained by the Independent Assemblies of God in 1956, and he started his first church, the People's Temple Christian Church Full Gospel, in Indianapolis. He used influence from the black churches in the area and created a more lively experience at his church. The atmosphere and the message of integration attracted both white and black attendees, and after an endorsement from a popular minister and faith healer, his congregation soon grew to over 1,000 people. Soon the church's name was shortened to the People's Temple. Jim and Marceline adopted a number of non-white children. They adopted Agnes, who was part Native American, in 1954. They adopted 3 Korean American children named Lou, Stephanie, and Suzanne in 1959. Stephanie died in a car accident the same year. Also in 1959, Marceline gave birth to her and Jim's only biological child, Stefan. In 1961, they were the first white couple to adopt a black child in the state of Indiana. They named him Jim Jr., though wouldn't he be Jim III? I guess Jim didn't recognize his own father. Jim felt like Indiana was too racist and he wouldn't be able to get his message out there. He decided to pack up his family, his church, and several of its members and move to more progressive California. He chose the town of Ukiah, about 115 miles or 185 kilometers north of San Francisco, because he read an article in Esquire magazine that listed the 9 places in the world where you could survive a thermonuclear attack, and one of them was close to Ukiah. Except this isn't what he told the congregation. He told them that he had received a vision that a nuclear attack would destroy Indianapolis. This was actually based on a prediction made by another faith healer that also influenced another cult leader, Paul Schaefer, to move his cult to South America in the 70s as well. By 1965, it had only influenced Jim to move his church to California, but it did start him on the path to South America. Another Esquire article claimed that South America would be the safest place to flee in the event of nuclear war. Of course, this was during the Cold War, and the idea that the US would go to nuclear war with the Soviet Union was at the forefront of every conversation.
Right.
In California, Jim got a job as a teacher at an adult education school. He taught civics and American history and used this position as a place to spread his message of communism and recruit church members. It was in California where Jim began shifting the focus of church from religion to politics. The members started out tithing 20%, but soon Jim convinced older members to sell their homes and give the proceeds along with their savings to him. He used the money to build a retirement community where they could live and all have their needs met. The communities were said to have been really nice, and the plan actually worked well. The church developed a farm and a commune where the members could live and work. They began handing over their entire paychecks and received an allowance along with any food, housing, and medical care they needed. A lot of other things started to change at the People's Temple after the move to California. Jim began having an affair with one of the members. He began using drugs and his paranoia skyrocketed. He began preaching that people were going to try to shut their church down. At first, it was the Nazis and fascists. Then, of course, it was the government. On top of the affair, he was also having sex with many of the members, men and women. Sexual favors were a good way to get power within the organization. By the early 70s, the People's Temple had opened churches in San Francisco and Los Angeles. The church had grown to have members in the thousands. Jim purchased buses and took his gospel on the road. It was at these road shows where Jim would take his faith healing up a notch. Here he would plant people in the crowd who would pretend to have ailments that he could cure. He healed a woman's impaired vision and made a crippled woman walk, but those people were never really sick to begin with. They were people that worked for him back in California. Inside the church, things were becoming exceedingly abusive. If members didn't do as they were told, they would be publicly shamed. Once, when Jim heard that a member had questioned his actions, he poisoned the man's food so he became violently ill. Some members would get punished with physical beatings. Some of the members started questioning Jim. They found it hypocritical that he preached about equality, but all of the leaders within the church were white. Not only that, but new white members would rise in ranks quickly, where black members who had been there longer never gained any power. Jim also stepped up his rhetoric to keep members from leaving, claiming things like they would be reincarnated as the lowest form of life if they left the church. I'm sure I've said this before, but if you have to threaten your congregation with punishment in order to keep them there, that religion might not be so great. Some of the members decided it was time to leave the group. Not only did they want to leave, but they wanted people to know what was really going on. In 1973, defectors were interviewed for an article that detailed the abuse that went on inside the church. Physical and sexual abuse, as well as financial scams. Of course, the members claimed that the ex-members were all liars. They said that they were pedophiles and that they had embezzled money from the church. Even powerful politicians in California defended the church because they did do a lot of humanitarian work. Jim Jones did want to help people. He built senior centers and youth centers. The church was active in the civil rights movement. This kept people distracted by the good things the church was doing. Even so, Jim knew that a can of worms was being opened and that it was only a matter of time before people were looking more closely at the inner workings of the group. He needed somewhere for the group to flee to and be free of outside influence. Jim had traveled around South America in the 60s, initially looking at locations in Brazil. He never found exactly what he was looking for there, but soon he traveled through the small country of Guyana. It's the only country in South America where English is the official language, so it was perfect for the church, and Jim liked their socialist government. By 1974, Jim leased a bunch of land in Guyana and claimed it would be the church's new promised land. It was officially named the People's Temple Agricultural Project, but was informally called Jonestown. It started as a jungle, but the land was cleared and they built dormitories, a medical clinic, a school, and a pavilion where they could hold events. They stocked non-perishable food like canned vegetables and evaporated milk. They had huge gardens where they grew the rest of their food. The first group of members arrived in Guyana in 1974 so they could continue building the commune, while, at the same time, Jim went back to the US to try to get his church in order. Over the next few years, more and more members were transferred to the commune in Guyana. One of the people who Jim sent to Guyana was 6-year-old John Stowen. John's parents were listed as Timothy and Grace Stowen on his birth certificate, but Jim had a sexual relationship with Grace and claimed that John was actually his son. Timothy and Grace had both signed affidavits naming Jim as the father of John when the boy was born. Grace soon started having doubts about Jim Jones and his church and began defying his claim that he was John's father. After numerous physical punishments for her behavior, she fled the group, with Timothy and John remaining members. When Timothy fled in June of 1977, Jim kept John in Jonestown. This development would turn into a contentious custody battle. While Jim was back in the US, in March of 1977, an article for New West magazine was scheduled to be published that described abuse claims from former members. As a courtesy, the editor called Jim the night before it was to be published and read him the article. Jim left the area and permanently relocated to Jonestown that night. The article wasn't even published when Jim fled. Jim used the custody battle with the Stowens to convince his followers that the government was going to come in and take John. This wasn't going to be a couple of people showing up to calmly take custody of a child. It was going to be a military raid where they would take children and arrest Jim. He started holding drills where everyone would meet in the pavilion and armed guards would surround them. Then he would tell the members that the commune was surrounded by agents who were trying to destroy them. They would pray, sing, and chant for hours or even days before the drill would be over. But Jim only told them that it was a drill afterwards. He kept them constantly on edge and in fear of their lives. Sounds like a real utopia. Jim was able to do this because he was their only source of information. Jim told his followers that the United States government had ordered all African Americans and Indian Americans to be rounded up and put into camps. He told them that the country had fallen to a fascist, racist regime and they were going to come to Guyana and stop them from spreading their message. The commune had a loudspeaker that played messages
now we've
from
done
Jim
it.
at all times. They were meant to keep the members scared. He talked about the jungle and how the snakes would kill you, crocodiles would swallow you up, and that you would sink into quicksand. He kept the members too scared to try to leave. As Jim's mental health deteriorated and his drug addiction took over, he became adamant that people were not allowed to leave him. Anyone leaving him was a traitor and they would be punished and forced to stay. By now, the Stowens had started a group called Concerned Relatives who were fighting for family members in Jonestown who were not being allowed to leave the commune. On April 11, 1978, the group distributed a packet to the People's Temple, members of the press, members of Congress, and to the State Department. The packet was titled Accusations of Human Rights Violations by Reverend James Warren Jones, and it included documents, letters, and affidavits that showed that Jim Jones was violating human rights laws as well as laws in the country of Guyana. They had a temple document that threatened mass suicide as well as affidavits from former members who verified the claims. Debbie Layton was one of the women who was sexually assaulted by Jim years before. When she didn't show interest in continuing a sexual relationship, he told the group that she had begged him for sex and humiliated her in front of everyone she knew. By the beginning of 1978, Debbie knew she had to get out of Jonestown if she wanted to live. She had no money, no passport, and didn't know anyone who could help her. Through a series of trips to Georgetown, she was able to contact the American consul, who issued her an emergency passport and got her a flight out of the country. Once back in the States, she went public with information about suicide drills, abuse, and that people weren't allowed to leave. She told the public that Jim would call everyone into the pavilion and they would all line up and get a cup of Flavor Aid, which is basically a generic brand of Kool-Aid. Then they would all drink it as if it were poison. They were practicing for a time that Jim believed the US government was going to raid their commune. As far as he was concerned, they would be there any day. Despite these suicide drills being reported, nobody took it seriously. Nobody thought that a large group of people would really commit suicide. By 1978, though, the leadership of this cult was very serious about carrying out a mass suicide. Except it wasn't going to be a mass suicide. It was going to be a mass murder-suicide. In letters written by the women who were Jim's highest-ranking leaders, they wrote about how people wouldn't just line up to die, so a group of them would have to be tricked into taking the poison. They knew ahead of time that some of their members wouldn't want to die, and they were planning out how they were going to kill them anyway. They obtained large quantities of cyanide and did the calculations on how much would need to be mixed into the Flavor Aid. They tested their mixture on pigs. This was already worked out before the events of November 18, 1978. By that November, family members grew so concerned about the situation in Jonestown that they talked to Congressman Leo Ryan, who agreed to go to Guyana, visit the commune, and see if anyone was unhappy. The commune heard this news and did everything they could to keep everyone acting happy and healthy. The congressman arrived with a news crew and they toured the community. At first, everything seemed great. People were singing and dancing. Congressman Ryan asked some of the members if they were happy, and they said yes. At some point, one of the members that wanted to leave passed a note to the news crew. The note said they needed help escaping Jonestown. Jim was asked about the note, and he said that it was a lie, and Jonestown was a great place. When the congressman asked if anyone wanted to leave, 2 families agreed to leave with him and the news crew. Despite Jim claiming that anyone was free to go, the rest of the members became violent. One member attacked the congressman with a knife, yelling that he was going to kill him. Fortunately, other members restrained the attacker, and Congressman Ryan was able to get to the airstrip with the news crew and the defecting families. Not long after they arrived, another vehicle pulled up into the airstrip and opened fire on the group. Congressman Ryan, 3 members of the news crew, and 1 defector were killed before they could leave the country. Jim Jones was such a little, insecure boy that he decided that nobody was allowed to leave him, no matter the cost. Jim made an announcement for his followers to meet in the pavilion. He announced that the congressman was dead and claimed that the government would come and torture them all. He said they needed to leave and go to sleep. He claimed that he wanted to die and told his followers that without him, life wasn't worth living. Some of them didn't want to die, and they didn't want the children to die either.
I look at our babies and I think they deserve to live.
I agree.
You know?
But also they deserve, what's more, they deserve peace.
We all came here for peace.
And have we had it?
No.
I tried to give it to you. I've laid down my life practically. I've practically died every day to give you peace. And you've still not had any peace. You look better than I've seen you in a long while, but it's still not the kind of peace that I wanted to give you.
But it wasn't a choice. Armed guards surrounded the pavilion. His followers would either drink the poison willingly or have it forced down their throat. They started injecting cyanide into the children's mouths. The mixture was strong enough that most of them died almost immediately. When the children were dead, the adults began drinking the poison either voluntarily or they were forced to.
Take our life from us. We laid it down. We got tired. We didn't commit suicide. We committed an act of revolutionary suicide protesting the conditions of an inhumane world.
When everyone else was gone, Jim's nurse, Annie Moore, shot him in the head before shooting herself. A total of 909 people died in Jonestown. A third of them were under the age of 18. 5 people were shot and killed at the airstrip, and 4 died in a house owned by the People's Temple in Georgetown. Some leading scientists say we have to have euthanasia. Oh no. Oh no. Who's going to decide who and when a person's going to die? We must never allow that, because this is the kind of thing that ushers in the terror of a Hitler's Germany. We must not allow these kind of things to enter our consciousness. From a sermon given by Jim Jones in the early 70s. He said whatever he needed to say to gain loyal followers, but he couldn't handle anyone leaving him. He didn't believe any of the bullshit he preached. It was all to get people to adore him because he was fragile. He chose to be a monster instead of being alone. If you're the victim of domestic abuse, please reach out to someone for help. Talk to your local shelter or call the National Domestic Abuse Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE. That's 1-800-799-7233. Or you can go to thehotline.org to chat with someone online. This website is set up so that at any time, hitting the escape key twice will take you to a Google search page. That way, if your abuser is nearby, you won't get caught seeking help. If you're having feelings of harming yourself or someone else, or even just need someone to talk to, please contact your local mental health facility, call 911, or call Mental Health America, who operate the National Suicide Prevention Hotline at 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-8255. They're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Thanks so much for letting me tell you this story. If you enjoyed it, subscribe on whatever platform you're on.
And thank you, yes. Normally I don't sit through that stuff, but the fact that they showed the abuse hotline and the suicide prevention hotline on this is monster. I have to let it run through each time because I believe in that. There needs to be more information about that. Now, okay, the Score Sports is the channel that you sent me to, right, Chunky? I've never seen it before. And I don't know who Kickstar is. The Heart and Soul of Rainbow Six Siege. Okay. I don't know even what that is. Let me see what it says down here. Oh, okay. Okay. So we're going to round out our night with this. Because I started a few short minutes late, so I don't mind running over a few minutes. Not too far, but a few minutes. And we're going to start this one. Let's see what we got here.
Kix was, at the very beginning of the game, probably top 5 most well-known, most popular, most watched people. Behind me.
Kix had like the whole package. He was the first one to really have like great movement and great mechanical skills out of anyone that I personally saw.
Retiring from a pro to be a caster because the casters we had
weren't that great at the time, trying to fix it from the inside out.
He only needs 2 more, and they're both still very low. He can deny the plant with the evil eye and just keep himself alive. 19 bullets, so he's got to be careful with that ammunition counter. And here's the denial! Oh my God! 5 seconds, and cameraman has to rush! Will he land the shot? Cold! Incredible!
He lended legitimacy to Rainbow Six because this is the first professional player that gets to talk about it.
There's so much influence that he had. He was so passionate. It's because he had so much undying love for the game and what it brought.
The plant going down. Bio has to cover. And he's gonna do a great job of it, but no! Jarvis drops from CEO! Bio still has time to win the fights, but why are you sprinting, Bio?
Pretty much single-handedly saved Siege, you know.
The Rainbow Six community and the esports world as a whole lost a great with the passing of Michael Kickstar Stockley.
Kicks, we lost obviously a community member, like a pro league caster. Like the void will never be filled.
I mean, I don't know what Rainbow Six esports looks like right now without Kicks. I don't.
Not only 24,
it's really hard to
huh?
put into words exactly, what we lost when Kicks passed away. But yeah, we lost someone really special.
Michael Kickstar Stockley had been around since the very beginning of Rainbow Six Siege. And I mean the very beginning.
What made me get into Rainbow Six? It was an FPS game that had just come out. Well, it hadn't come out, it was in beta. But I liked playing FPS games, and I saw the game and I was like, I'm gonna play that.
An FPS-obsessed 18-year-old, Kix hadn't just spent virtually every second of his adolescence immersing himself in shooters. He obsessed over them.
I think I started playing FPS games when I was like 9 or 10 years old. You really need to invest time and keep going at it to actually become good at video games.
Unfortunately, Kix was the product of a truly tumultuous childhood. For him, gaming was less of a pastime and more of an escape.
My mom met some douchebag, some prick. This guy was an asshole. Oh my God, he was an asshole. He was verbally abusive towards me, my sister, and my mom, and he made our lives hell. But he introduced me to PC gaming. He showed me what PC gaming was.
So too was content creation. From Fear to Project Blackout to CSGO to the free-to-play Funhouse where he invested the vast majority of his efforts, Warface, Kix was your classic cracked YouTuber who would stop at nothing to make a name for himself.
So I got kind of pushed out of my house by things that happened, and right now I'm crashing on someone's couch, just chilling. I'm sorry that I haven't uploaded, and I tried to put out 2 videos today, 2 mixed videos, just as a sorry, apology for not uploading for a whole month. I hope you guys enjoy them.
But it wasn't until the end of 2015, when Ubisoft's messy yet revolutionary Tom Clancy-themed tac shooter entered beta, that you could truly say Kix found his calling.
Any pro player will tell you the same story. Really, with this sort of thing, it's like you kind of just pick up on the intrinsic value of Siege when you first play it. You can just kind of feel that this is that game, and I just had that same kind of thing as everybody else.
You were nasty at the start of the game. I remember, because I remember watching and I remember playing against you, and it was noticeable because most people couldn't shoot and you could actually shoot.
Behind. Oh, Top 4 eliminated.
Over the course of 2016, Kickstar began to cement himself as one of the nuttiest, most foundational fraggers in North America.
I think he was one of the first people to have actually really good mechanical skills in the game. For me and a lot of other people in this game, it's, you get a decent aim and stuff like that, but you can get by a lot on just using your brain, using strategy, using the gadgets in the game. But Kix had the whole package. He was really smart. He had awesome like usage of gadgets and stuff like that, and just he was the first one to really have like great movement and great mechanical skills out of anyone that I personally saw.
For a community that was just coming into its own, Kix wasn't just a figurehead. He was a trailblazer, a teacher, someone from whom players new and experienced alike could learn the ins and outs of Siege.
A lot of the things that people now do today, right? Like getting Valkyrie cameras in like prime positions and running out with them. I mean, a lot of that was like Kix, and I mean, other people did do it too, but that was like a lot of the early strats of like that were like pioneer in the game, like the aggressive Ash plays, like that was a lot of that was him. Like he really was like one of the first people doing like that.
Kix was at the very beginning of the game, probably top 5 most well-known, most popular, most watched people at that exact moment. There was no Bolo. King George wasn't King George at the time. You were in North America, you watched Kix, that's it. You watched Kix, you wanted Kix to succeed.
By March, he'd made his way onto Orbit and was competing in the inaugural season of ESL Pro League, where his roster secured the first overall seed in North America and a top 4 finish internationally. And by season 2, they managed to claw their way all the way to the finals. Unfortunately, after falling short in that final and watching as his roster sort of fell apart, Kix found himself in a bit of a tough spot. Despite flirting with retirement, Kix played out half a season with Orbit's spin-off, Orgless, before calling it quits for real. And then he was presented with a new opportunity, one that changed everything.
I retired in the middle of the 3rd season, not being comfortable on the team that I was playing with at the time, and one of my good friends, Panky, he jumped on one of my streams, and in the chat he's just like, hey, you want to commentate? And I was like, yeah, let's do that.
Now I just want to see what happens on Hereford, because Hereford could be anyone's map. Between these two teams, like you said, we haven't seen a whole lot of Hereford. I have no idea. Yeah. Like this is who knows? Maybe Flipside can bring it back, bring it to a tied game. That'd be pretty awesome.
He lended legitimacy to Rainbow Six because this is the first professional player that gets to talk about it, and having somebody to come in and explain to you, here's why this action is happening and a pro team is acting in a certain way, made a lot of things click in people's heads, because they're like, oh, now I understand what it's about. This is what everybody was screaming.
Obviously here we're looking at a construction open. Now that makes me think that what's going to happen next is he's going to go ahead and open the stock drop, because there's not a whole lot of reason to open the moto drop and the construction drop, although I've seen some teams do it. I'm curious to see how they handle this attack, honestly.
I could always go back and like rewatch our Pro League games and stuff, and I was like, okay, I agree with every single thing that Kix is saying. He actually understands what's going on. He's able to break down the plays that we have. You know, he understands like the strategy behind what we're doing, what the enemy team is doing, mistakes that are made, mistakes that are not made. Like he was really the first person to really be able to do that as a caster.
By 2017, he'd been recruited to cast Siege's first ever Ubisoft hosted World Championship, the Invitational.
Let's welcome the rest of the cast. The team, we have Panky and Kickstar.
Thanks, Matt. Hey,
how's it going? It's good.
As soon as SI came to a close, Kix went all in on casting. He relocated to Poland so as to cast Pro League from the comfort of the ESL studio, and threw himself mind and body into his craft.
I was waking up at midnight to go in at 1 a.m. to cast the North American Pro League until 6 a.m. I cast the North American Pro League in the beginning of the week and the European Pro League in the end of the week.
Unfortunately, this meant that he wasn't always the easiest to work with. Kix was a very young caster who, in addition to being away from home and somewhat antisocial by nature, had had a pretty hard life. It wasn't always easy to get the best out of him.
He was hard to work with. I mean, nobody's gonna deny that. Not the greatest reputation here in Poland when he moved to Katowice to work in the studio. Yeah, he wasn't super social. He had a hard time making friends, and you could tell the atmosphere in the studio that he didn't feel super great there.
He's reserved, just kind of keeps to himself, and he will randomly go off and do his own thing. You're like walking around having a chat, and he sees something off in the distance, and he just walks on out to it, and checks it out, or just starts dancing in the streets.
ADHD.
Something nice. And this is this was Michael, you know? He's all over
That
the
he
place.
was never...
There's so much happening at the same time in his head.
He had this very, very hard shell.
Sounds to me like ADHD or ADD.
And see his true self, he was a completely different person. Lovely, you know, full of energy, caring person. But also that had to, he had to evolve over the years.
It was also around this time that Kick started to transition away from YouTube and towards Twitch.
I didn't stream back then, like no one really did. It was honestly like pretty much probably like Kicks and Serenity at the time. There was no one else streaming really. So he was really the first one to be like, hey, like there are cool things you could do in this, and I'm gonna record it and I'm gonna share it with the world and help this game grow and help people understand that there's like limitless possibilities with everything you could do in this game.
With his content creation skyrocketing almost as quickly as his casting career, little did Kix know, by the end of that year, he'd have made the most fateful acquaintance of all.
I ended up reaching out to him and we just started talking. It kind of piqued his interest because he heard that I was a caster and I got along fairly well right off the hop. And he said, can you send me some clips of you casting? So I was like, okay, sure, I can do that. I didn't know that it was at the time to potentially replace his caster that he was working with, but that's what it ended up being for. I just thought he was curious. And he ended up watching it, and he said to me after a couple days of talking back and forth, I'm gonna be totally blunt with you. I want somebody new to cast with, and I think you're pretty good. Would you move to Poland to do it? And that's kind of where it all began.
Hello and welcome to Playday number 2 of the North American Pro League. My name is Kickstar and I am joined by a new addition to our roster in Terrobang. How is it going in Terrobang? How are you feeling about your first day of Pro League casting?
I'll be honest and just say, get out of the way. It is a little nerve-wracking, but I am extremely humbled and very appreciative to be given this opportunity.
To say that Kix and Intero had chemistry would be an understatement. It wasn't chemistry. It was magic.
And he'll obscure that mirror. He gets a kill on the Necross, but MBK is able to get Wilkie first. Bootsy gets softened up, and it's really just Shate who's fighting in full force here. They spray into the smoke. Canadian and him spy one another, as down goes Canadian. He shoots...
Okay, just so I don't lose my, have to close it because I haven't stopped it yet. This is actually really interesting, and the fact that he dies at the age of 24, I think is very sad. But... So he is kind of like what got the whole Twitch thing really go. I mean, he didn't start Twitch, but as far as like casting, game casting, or game streaming and stuff, he seems to be like the one who got shit up and running. Or at least is one of the first that was ever known to do it and become popular. That is actually kind of cool.
The corpse as Bootsy eliminates him, and now Shate runs in. He's going to go for the flank onto the Mira, but as NBK picks up yet another kill, it's just Shate. The Capital peeks around the corner. He outduels BC, but it's still a 1v2, and they have control of the hatch above. This is going to be difficult. The attackers do have the hatch, or do have the plan. It will go down. NBK patrolling above. Diffuser should go down quite easily, but now Shate, NBK drop. That's one, a huge round from Shate. He could clutch this out. It's just Young left. Will we be able to see it? Shate! What a round from him, and Ents steals it away from EG.
One of the greatest clutches I have seen, especially at this finals. Shate, we talked about he needs to step it up for them to win this match, and he certainly did.
Kix pretty much has as much knowledge as you could possibly have on the game, right? Of all the operators, gadgets, pro play, takes, strategy, usage, like anything you could pretty much name off the top of your head. Kix has that, and Intero can just talk and talk and talk and talk, and he's good at it. He is. Okay, I'll give him credit where credit's due. He's good at it. So that combination of being able to talk forever and having someone to actually like give you things to talk about and back up like the knowledge on what you're talking about, that's a great combo right there.
You can see Psycho, he's got that top west side control, and he's going to continue to try and clear out these roamers, but it's just continuing to stall. Cantor Raketti, the first kill of this series, the second kill of this series, the third kill of this series, takes out Julio.
and PZD before he gets a refrag from Kamikaze. What an amazing roam from Kanto Raketti.
He's taken almost all of Wag's health down as well. He's going to get pushed by Kamikaze. Is he going to be able to get out? That's a 4th kill for Kanto. There's only one left standing in the way between the entire team. He doesn't have very much health left, but neither does Wag. And Ents coming off strong, or rather, Kanto coming off strong. You'll see now, though, Wag will move, and he'll get as far away from the Ella of Kanto Raketti as he can.
No ace for you.
And he will fall inside of Garage.
But Kixen and Taro were more than just a casting duo. They were comrades, kindred spirits, dear, dear friends, brothers.
Everybody that he'd casted with up until that point, he was never friends with, right? It was more like a work relationship. They were colleagues, and some of them he just outright didn't particularly like for a variety of reasons.
I feel could be that next Cinderella story.
Yeah, not being mean, but he was a young kid, and if they were putting him with actual, like, sportscaster type people doing this was a kid gamer. If they're trying to do professionals with a kid gamer, yeah, you need someone on his level, and it always helps when you have a team working together to have a little chemistry, and I don't mean that in any weird sense, but just that ability to work together and feed off each other's energy and shit.
It was a Cinderella story last season. This season, Infamy has that potential.
Yeah. I thought he was a total oddball, but he was entertaining. I thought he was exceptionally smart. And we got along quite well, and we had a lot of mutual interests. And I think when we first started talking, before we even knew we were going to cast together, I think he was just drawn to having a friend. I think he was in Poland, he was isolated, he was lonely. And I think he saw in somebody, hey, this guy's relatively normal, and I can get along with him. And I think that went a long way.
I went to Vancouver, but I was like 5.
So that was like 2 years ago.
This is what I live with.
This is what we live with.
Fair enough.
And after years of commitment to competition, Kix made commentary his focus at the end of 2018, right as the game was really starting to explode.
I don't think Kix ever really viewed himself as a caster until our casting scene started to grow around mid to late 2018. Up until that point, casting in Rainbow Six was, you didn't really get a lot of publicity. Rainbow Six wasn't really the talk of the town. It was an esport that kind of lay in obscurity. The players were the real stars, not the casters. And he had an opportunity to leave in 2018 that was presented to him to go join an up-and-coming org and maybe get back into the playing component. Probably not, but at least be back in the action as a coach or a general manager, strategist, analyst, whatever role they had for him. And I think he was drawn to that because he, up until that point, he saw himself as still a pro player who had been kind of down on his luck. You know, he had some bad luck with teams. He got booted off. He left teams because he didn't like them. And he always wanted to go back because he wanted to be the best. And as the casting realm evolved and things started to get more serious and competition amongst casters started heating up, I think he realized, hey, I can actually move my energy towards this because there's far greater challenges in front of me as a commentator than there are as a player.
Narrow shot on a Nesk, but Nesk won't miss his, and on full HP, he's gonna have full control of Projector, and because of that, able to take down Julio. Psycho whips out the SMG pistol, but the nade from Sexy will shut him down. Kamikaze, the last defender, but he can't make it happen. What a round from Nesk, and what a round from Liquid to take it.
Michael, when is your rap album dropping?
I don't... What are you talking about?
You went full rap god on that one?
This dude could seamlessly jump from expert analyst to surgical shoutcaster at the drop of a hat.
Benitez is getting shot from behind. C4 comes out, but it's too late. 9XT, 2 kills in this round, and he's being a big factor for his team. Dark Zero down to Hot and Cold, who's managed to light up the Lion and Mav. Only one full HP attacker left, but it's the same story for Hot and Cold. And there goes Cameraman. It's one shot for 9XT, one shot for Mav, and Hot and Cold will win this out. Only 26 bullets left in that Alda, but that's plenty, and he knows this low HP. He can use his Evil Eyes to win this. There's still 40 seconds left, so this is not a rush situation for FaZe. They will pick up Cameraman.
The build up to Houghton is perfect because the actual casting of the clutch is good. It's great. But what I actually think is better is how he sets it up. When Houghton is on the main stairs and he has to rotate through tellers and archives into the small office, he paints the scene beautifully. He sets expectations, he states win conditions, while talking about player positioning, denoting the time, giving a sense of urgency, giving how dire the situation is for both teams and what's on the line, and then immediately pivots to play-by-play effortlessly and gives it the energy it deserves. He is his own color in play-by-play for the final 30 seconds.
So we're back to a 1-on-3. The tension is huge. Well, Evil Eye going to be a massive factor here for Hot and Cold if he can play this correctly. He cannot vault this, so he'll prep it, but that'll give away his rotation and his intentions. It doesn't seem that 9XT has noticed this, though. It doesn't seem like there's a camera, and there's a nice kill for Hot and Cold.
And he passes off to himself in just like stunning fashion. He doesn't miss anything. There's nothing missed. I don't know how you put that. You go to a lab and create the best casting possible for that scenario, and I don't know how the result that we have now is improved upon.
He only needs 2 more, and they're both still very low. He can deny the plant with the Evil Eye and just keep himself alive. 19 bullets, so he's got to be careful with that ammunition counter, and here's the denial! Oh my God! 5 seconds, and cameraman has to rush! Will he land the shot? Incredible!
But it wasn't just Kix and Intero's elegant interplay that fans adored. It was their hilarity.
I saw him deploy after he.
Don't make that signal with your hand. Don't.
I saw him deploy.
Don't do that gesture ever again.
He did the shield thing. Stop. Why? What is wrong with your brain?
You could tell that they had this amazing chemistry. They just know exactly what the other person wants to say. They knew their sense of humor, and no, you could tell on camera that they are friends.
By the time 2020 rolled around, Siege was undergoing a much-deserved blow-up, and with excitement around the game reaching a fever pitch, Kix and Intero cemented themselves as one of esports' most in-demand duos.
Psycho's gonna have to clutch up hard! He gets the second deny. Only 20 seconds left for that plant. It's a stick from Rafael, so a one-on-one effectively here. Psycho wins it! And now another one-on-one as Rafael's in the post plant. There it is, though. Psycho gets it. 4K and Ninjas in Pajamas. The 7-4 taking the map and the series. Europe's gone. Let him forward.
Unfortunately, the toll that COVID took on Siege was significant. With everything moving online, Kix was afforded the chance to relocate back home and spend some much-needed quality time, not just with his family, but with himself.
And then he started caring about his appearance, and he started getting tailored suits, and he started, getting imported jackets, and he started looking at watches, and he started wearing rings, and all of a sudden he's caring about his appearance, he's caring about things outside of gaming, and his whole world opened up to him.
Over the next year and a half, Kix grew as both a caster and creator, expanding his horizons like never before. Nothing excited Kix like world-class Siege, and nothing tilted him like subpar Siege. His praise was coveted, and his criticisms carried weight.
He's like the Hasanabi of Rainbow Six. He's always getting away with it.
The plant going down. Bio has to cover. And he's gonna do a great job of it, but no! Jarvis drops from CEO! Bio still has time to win the fights, but why are you sprinting, Bio?
He actually understood the game. He understood the strategy at a fundamental level, and he understood that people are making mistakes. So, yeah, he has the license to say it, I guess, but it's for good reason. It's not just he's just saying it to say it, just to criticize because he doesn't like someone or something. It's just true.
First, right f***ing there. Right there, that's where he f***ed up. You see it? He got downed. You see that? He f***ed up first. Problem with Stand, since it's only on this operator, is that it gave him another opportunity. It gave him a buffer of you can f*** up one time, but these guys can't f*** up one time. You can, not them.
And he had that credibility that came from being a player, that he could call out teams and he could call out bad plays where none of the other casters could do that. And that brought this weight to the broadcast, this legitimacy to the broadcast, because he was a former pro.
The Siege community revered and respected Kickstar like no other. He'd stood side by side with the game on every step of its journey, and had played a pivotal role in helping it to blossom into a globally successful esport. It's not an overstatement to say that without Kix, Siege would not be what it is today.
What he did for the scene was insane. He is he pretty much single-handedly saved Siege, retiring from a pro to be a caster because the casters we had weren't that great at the time, trying to fix it from the inside out. He sacrificed a lot of his own dreams so that he could, I guess, build a better future for the game that he fell in love with.
Kix was finally reaping in the benefits of his years of hard work and sacrifice. He'd helped Siege become the esport it promised to be, all while inspiring countless players, content creators, and casters alike. But in the fall of 2021, as he signed off his stream to go for a customary late-night drive, he did so, not knowing it would be for the last time.
Thank you for watching, everybody. It was a pretty stream today, but I mean, I had fun anyway. So thank you for making it fun, and yeah, see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
I woke up the morning that I found out to a DM on Instagram from somebody who wasn't following me. All it said was, "Hey Parker, I'm sorry to have to tell you this, but your friend Michael died. I was the first person at the scene. I was the first person to call the cops. I'm here if you need to talk to me. Really, really sorry." And I was just like, yeah, sure, just send me proof along, thinking like, okay, this is where the joke falls apart. And over the course of the next hour or so, this guy started sending proof that was impossible to verify without this being A, a complete misunderstanding, or B, it was true.
The police had called and left a message at 5:30, but because it came in as an unknown caller, I didn't see it. Really, I didn't pay attention. And I didn't find out till Tuesday morning, probably 11 in the morning, when somebody was at the door. The dog was barking uncontrollably. I opened it up and there's two officers, and it's like, oh, he crashed. I know he crashed. We knew he hadn't come home that night. And then I looked at the officer's badge and saw one of them said coroner. And that was the
It's weird knowing before the parents knew, because I knew before they did. And when they're like, "Hey, so you're probably wondering why we want you to call us," and I was like, "Nope. I know why." It's an awful feeling that nobody should have to go through.
On October 11th, 2021, Michael Kickstar Stockley passed away in a tragic and unexpected car accident. To say that his friends, family, the Siege community, and esports at large were inconsolable would be an understatement.
Kix, we lost obviously a community member, like a pro league caster. Like the void will never be filled for pro league for casting ever. Like it doesn't matter who's there, it'll never be the same. It won't. And obviously, we lost someone who was, a great ambassador for the game and just a great all around guy and a good friend too.
Siege loses a family member, a friend, an advocate, a pillar, a foundational pillar. It's really hard to put into words exactly what we lost when Kix passed away, but we lost someone really special.
Kickstar was, in no uncertain terms, a part of the very soul of Siege. One of the game's most iconic, indispensable, and irreplaceable figures.
I mean, I don't know what Rainbow Six esports looks like right now without Kix. I don't. Not even from a casting perspective, but his formulation of, R6TMs, which then was kind of like a precursor to FPL, and how that brought thousands to tens of thousands of people to a competitive level that people had never seen before. Strictly speaking, that alone was huge.
Whether you were a seasoned vet or an aspiring up-and-comer, a nod of approval from Kickstar meant everything.
In year one, season one, we placed 8th place, the literal last place in North America. And then obviously, you know, I joined CTM and won the 6th Invitational. He's like, I gotta tell you, he's like, good job. He's like, from 8th place to 1st in the world. He's like, congrats. So it was like, it was definitely like a really good memory. And it was definitely like a moment too, because I still remember back then as well. It was just like, yeah, everyone thought we were like terrible. And it's like, you go from being like the literal last place to going to first place, and having like Kicks, like, I guess, you know, like validate that for you too, like on top of it, like, you know, that's like where, you know, it's like, okay, now it's official.
It was kind of like the final word, you know, like he said, what he said is basically gospel.
Kicks' streams were like group therapy sessions. I would sit in them and I would listen to them, and I would, you know, he'd sit back waiting for a cue and spend 20 minutes, you know, ruminating about his life and talking about things that had gone wrong and things that he wished he'd been able to do in the future and what he wanted to accomplish. And then, you know, the countless clips that were shared after his passing about how frank and honest he was about mental health and suicide and depression.
I'm not more depressed than anybody else, okay? Like when I was seriously going through depression, it wasn't, other people are experiencing the same shit daily. It's an ongoing struggle for tons and tons of people. And there's no reason for me to,
I got you. Everything's going to be okay.
Stay in that headspace. Why the would I?
So happy to have heard that in his last days. His whole response was, I'm just feeling good. I'm happy. Because that wasn't Michael when he first came to Poland. He wasn't happy. He didn't know who he was. There were months that felt, is he just gonna up and quit? He pulled out of it. That takes a lot of strength and energy. Very, very proud to have been part of that.
It goes without saying that a fixture such as Kicks can never be replaced. The man was a legend, a titan, a foundational father, a constant, never-ending force of comfort and assurance in an esport that needed it.
I feel like a lot of people in gaming, you know, suffer with their own personal struggles, and I know Kicks was one of those people that just was able to make you smile. A lot of people turned to him for help and support, and just honestly, just to, you know, just to, I guess, get away from their own things. They would just pay attention and watch him, and it would just make things like a lot better.
Kicks, thank you so much. I love you, bro. I watch you all the time. I'm sorry, I'm fanboying. I watch you all the time through high school, bro.
Oh, damn.
The world of esports will never be the same without Kickstar. There's no replacing someone like that. Someone who gave everything they had to make the game they loved, the game in which they found themselves, a better place. But thankfully, there's also no forgetting them.
People say that we'll no longer have Michael, and yeah, we'll no longer have anything new from him. But we have thousands and thousands of hours of him talking to the camera, on broadcasts, on social media. That whenever you feel like you miss him, just go watch those videos. There's nothing else you need, and you will feel like he's here.
Yes, the flame burned out, but holy shit, did it shine bright while it was, you know, lit up. Definitely did.
And I'm just really glad that I could have been a part of his life, and I'm gonna miss him.
Was kind of sad, but actually really interesting too, because like I said, I've heard of Kickstar, don't get me wrong, but I had never knew anything about him, so that kind of brings back something that I, you know, like I said, brings into focus something that I didn't understand. Because yes, I've heard of that guy before. I just didn't realize it was actually a person, to be honest. I never could understand what Kickstar was when people talked about Kickstar. Which is sad, because it sounds like I wish I'd have been watching his gaming things. He sounds like he was fun. Well, if you've seen, I've been sitting here squeezing on this thing. It's an uber soft, squishy duck made out of some sort of material. I just call him my squishy duck. I've been trying to use him so I don't have to go have a cigarette. It's kind of like my stress ball, so I'm to keep my hands busy, so I didn't need a cigarette as soon. So if you're wondering what I was doing with that thing, it's my little stress ball thingy. End of my night tonight, guys. Just another reminder that through this month, streams will be a little erratic because of my schedule. I think next week is on a Tuesday. I'm not sure that I can stream, but not on Monday. And let's see what else. Oh, but at the end, around next month sometime, the room we've been working on should be about ready for me to move my streaming stuff into, so I can stream later, longer hours, and different days and whatnot as it works. So, as a great night for everybody. We're going to close that down. Wish everybody a wonderful night. Thank you to the followers, especially you, Chunky, for those awesome videos you gave me to look at.